a wide range of stakeholders, including government, nonprofit, charitable, private sector, labor, and community organizations. Who is involved? Leadership is provided across several organizations, all working towards a common goal of helping to achieve an inclusive labor market. These organizations work together in partnership through three main bodies: a senior leadership table, an advisory group, and a service delivery team. Partner organizations contribute to Construction Connections in several ways by providing strategic leadership, project planning and coordination, direct or in-kind investment, expert knowledge and advisory, or direct service delivery. This partnership model has many obvious benefits, including the ability to combine knowledge and resources for greater collective impact. For example, as part of this pilot project, the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development has contracted the YMCA to work alongside TAS staff in an Construction Connections, building careers and communities. A construction sector workforce development and employment services hub for job seekers and employers in Toronto. As part of a broader workforce development pathway pilot in the construction sector, Construction Connections is a sector-focused, one-stop shop that links Toronto job seekers with training, employment, and career supports, while providing employers with suitable, qualified candidates. Construction Connections has three main objectives: help job seekers navigate the construction training and apprenticeship system by providing career and employment planning services through dedicated sector-focused case management. Provide a pipeline apprentices and other skilled workers. Implement a sector-based workforce development pathway model that is built on strong partnerships across a wide range of stakeholders, including government, nonprofit, charitable, private sector, labor, and Construction Connections, building careers and communities. A construction sector workforce Construction Connections, building careers and communities. A construction sector workforce development and employment services hub for job seekers and employers in Toronto. As part of a broader workforce development pathway pilot in the construction sector, Construction Connections is a Construction Connections, building careers and communities. A construction sector workforce development and employment services hub for job seekers and employers in Toronto. As part of a broader workforce development pathway pilot in the construction sector, Construction Connections is a sector-focused, one-stop shop that links Toronto job seekers with training, employment, and career supports, while providing employers with suitable, qualified candidates. Help job seekers navigate the construction training and apprenticeship system by providing career and employment planning services to qualified candidates for construction sector
I'd like to call a meeting to order. Like to call the meeting to order. Hey, Mark, good to see you. Mary, good to see you. Good. Huh? Councillor Kelly, he's at the back. He's coming in. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to meeting number 22 of the Economic Development Committee. I want to welcome the members of the committee and other members of council who are here. I see Councillor Cressy in attendance, and also, of course, I want to welcome the public to this meeting. For those of you in the room with us, there is a screen at the back to my right, for most of you to your left, that provides real-time update concerning where we are in the agenda and what's coming up next on the agenda. And for those of you following the agenda and debate on your computer, your tablet, or smartphone, you can actually go to www.toronto.ca/council. The Economic Development Committee greatly acknowledges its meeting on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and home to many diverse indigenous people. Members, I will now go through the agenda and invite members to hold any items that they wish to hold. ED 22.1, update on Canada-European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement. We're going to hold that particular item. And we have the ambassador is here to speak to this item. I regret that I didn't actually do the declaration of interests under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. So are there any? Seeing none, thank you. Confirmation of the minutes of the May 8th. Councillor Grimes, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. And we've touched on ED 22.1. The ambassador is here, so we'll hold that particular item for presentation. ED 22.2, Partnership to Advance Youth Employment Pay Leadership Program. We have a presentation on that item. We'll hold that. ED 22.3, Construction Connection, a construction sector workforce development path pilot for Toronto. We have a presentation. We're holding that item. ED 22.4, Spotlight on Film, a strategic action plan for the film, television, and digital media industry. We have speakers on that item. We will hold. ED 22.5, Los Angeles Film Mission 2017. Is there a speaker on that item? We will hold. ED 22.6, Supporting the Growth of Toronto's Fashion Sector. We have speakers on that item as well. We will hold. ED 22.7, 2017 Cultural Build Allocations. Councillor Grimes is moving. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. ED 22.8, a profile of Toronto's evolving Ontario Works caseload profile. I'm going to hold that down. I just have a few questions. I think Ms. Wolcott will be here shortly, and if he's not, Mr. Manios will be able to answer some questions. So I'll put that in my name. ED 22.9, amendments to Toronto Municipal Code at Chapter 19, Business Improvement Areas. Councillor Frakadakis? Both. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor. ED 22.10, amendments to Business Improvement Area BIA Capital Cost Sharing Program Guidelines. Okay, Councillor Frakadakis is moving that. All those in favor? That opposed? Carries. Thank you. ED 22.11, intention to expand Western Village Business Improvement Area. Councillor Grimes is moving that. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. ED 22.12, prospect for bidding on the 2022 Commonwealth Games. This item is for receipt for information. Councillor Grimes is moving that. All those in... Well, yes. Adopt the recommendation, which is, in fact, to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor Grimes. ED 22.13, promoting international running tourism in Toronto. We have a number of speakers on that, and I know Councillor Frakadakis, you and I had talked about that. That party person, is he here?
Mr. Chair, the speaker is here listed on, but I haven't seen him, so
Okay.
I'm not sure where he is, because I was going to ask that this individual...
Oh, he is here, actually, in the back. Okay, great. So,
Okay.
Councillor, we'll get to that, and I know he has to leave at a certain time, so we will do our best to accommodate him, so thank you. We'll hold that. ED 22.14, that's the Toronto Economic Bulletin. Move receipt. Okay, so
is it
Councillor
received?
Grimes is moving the item. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you.
Council...
The recommendation, staff recommendation.
Yes, yes, which is to receive. Okay. We have one additional item to add under new business. Members, this particular pink sheet has been distributed to you. It is supporting 6 Degrees Citizen Space 2017. I'd like to add this to the agenda and give you an opportunity to read the item. Okay, so we'll hold it down. Pardon? Yeah, so we'll adding it to the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And you can read, and we can deal with this a little bit later on. Thank you. Okay, we are now moving to ED 22.1. Councillor?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chair. I was going to ask, I know that Reid Coolset, Canadian Olympian, is here and wanted to speak. I was wondering if he could speak on item 13, promoting international running tourism in Toronto, before we get started with all of the other presentations. We don't actually have to deal with the item,
Yes.
if that's possible.
Yeah, okay, and
My
I know
understanding is
that
to leave.
our first speaker has a flight to catch for 12:30, but you have to be at the airport, obviously, in order to get...
Oh, okay, well,
Okay, fair enough. So why don't we let her speak, and then we will do that as a second item, Councillor, when we can get to that. Okay, so members, ED 22.1, update on the European Union Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, otherwise known as CETA. We are very fortunate and, in fact, honored to have Marianne Koenings, who is the ambassador of the European Union to Canada. Ms. Koenig is here. She began her post as the European Union top diplomat in Canada in September 2013, after serving 4 years as ambassador of the European Union in Mexico. And so I'm delighted to have Ms. Koenings here with us today. As you know, the Comprehensive Trade Agreement, CETA, is a free trade agreement between Canada and the European Union. It's attempting to reduce trade barriers, and if in fact, as I read the material on EU trade, it is intending to eliminate up to 98% of the tariffs between Canada and the EU. I know that we have heard that this opportunity will create more jobs and strengthen our economic relations and so on, and in fact to be able to do trade with the, I believe it's the second largest market in the world. And Ambassador, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's my sense of it. It is a delight to have you here with us this morning. Ambassador Koenig, you may have the floor.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman. Mr. Thompson, many thanks. I'm very honored to be here and having the occasion to speak before your committee on the CETA agreement, the Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement. which is actually the most ambitious, most innovative trade agreement ever concluded by the European Union and Canada. And it took a long process, I would say, to get there. Not always an easy process, but we are very close to the application, the entry into force of the CETA agreement, which we hope that will happen in the next days. The importance of CETA is, in the first place, I would say, an important and a bilateral importance. For Canada, as you said, it will open markets and boost trade with, I would say, we call ourselves the largest economy in the world, with the most integrated market, a very competitive market. I always say if you make it there, you make it anywhere, with 500 million, more than 500 million consumers, and which, as I said, a very integrated market, I would say even more integrated than in Canada, where once goods and services enters into the European Union at any spot, they can circulate freely. And so the interest for Canada is obvious, and moreover, I'm very pleased to inform you that we have a new positive wind blowing in the European Union. Economically, economic growth is going very well. For the first time, we have unemployment under 10%. It's still a high figure, particularly for youth employment. But moreover, also, we have, I would say, a decrease of populism particularly since the French elections, and a boost and a big support of European citizens for the European project. For the European Union, Canada is also a very obvious partner. It's a strategic partner. The European Union has only 9 strategic partners in the world. It's an important economic partner. We share the same values and commitments of free trade, open market, and social policies, putting the people first, and particularly in this uncertain world where there is an increase of protectionism, it's very important that we share the same opinions. And therefore, this agreement, CETA, is not only bilateral important, but also important globally, because we set a model for free trade and counter protectionism, and give an answer for all those who are against free trade that they are wrong. Free trade promotes growth and promotes equally job creation. For Toronto, CETA provides also great opportunities, and also I would say for Ontario, innovation with CETA is when we started the negotiations with Canada. For the very first time in our history, we had implied and associated the provinces to the negotiation, which I think was extremely important, because the provinces took care of interests of the provinces, and including also the cities and municipalities. For Toronto, it will remove all the tariffs, and I will say some words more about that. It will open trade in services. Services are a big part of our economic activities. Very importantly, because often I hear that CETA will only benefit big companies. No, multinational big companies in principle do not need such agreement, but particularly it's key for small and medium enterprises. And I think we will do everything to cut red tape, to facilitate trade for our small and medium enterprises. And important for, I would say, Toronto is the opening of public procurement markets, which will ensure that the citizens get the best value for their money. This was one thing which the European Union considered very important with CETA, opening of procurement markets not only at federal level, provincial, but also municipal. But I have to add, and this was a request of the provinces, we have thresholds. Thresholds so to ensure that more smaller contracts of public procurement will be continued to dealt with at municipal level to promote also the local economy. We are very grateful to Toronto and to other Canadian cities who has welcomed the CETA agreement in November 2016, and which I think is also for us an important element to see a support at local level. Where do we stand on CETA? We had an important milestone with the signing of the CETA agreement in October 2016 at the occasion of a European Union-Canada summit in Brussels. Canada, the Senate has given its consensus in the royal consent in 2017. In May 2017, the European Parliament, which is important for the ratification of the European Union, have given its consent in February. So we are now waiting on an agreement between the European Union and Canada on the date of the entry into force. It will be an entry into force of provisional application, but don't be afraid of the word provisional, because it concretely will mean that the CETA will enter into force with more than 97%. And this date is really crucial because from day one, the tariffs will go down, nearly all tariffs for industrial goods and 95% for agricultural goods will go from day one from the average that they have to 0%. So that will be a major element. We are ready, and when I say we, also from the Canadian side, to start the implementation. I have been lately a lot of times in Toronto to speak with the European Chamber of Commerce and also with Canadian counterparts. Business is impatient to start profiting from the benefits, and I would say it will be important that we succeed with CETA because the world is looking to us how we will manage with it. But as I said, we have been profiting for an extremely well cooperation with Canada for the outset. It's an important agreement for us, and I really I'm confident that with the support of all stakeholders, also regionally and locally, that we will succeed. I will stop here, Mr. Chairman, and I will be most willing to answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Grimes first. There are no visiting councillors. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
You just mentioned we'll enter in 97%. What's the other 3%? Why not 100%?
It's mainly linked to the investment dispute settlement clauses, which is the only field which is not provisionally applied. It can only be applied when all the member states, the 28, the parliaments have ratified this. So this is only that percentage.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I just have a few, Ambassador. You talked about the agreement coming into force. What are some of the issues? Is it simply a process matter in terms of ensuring that on day one all of the tariffs will be in place, so it takes some time to do those types of calculations and the computerized system and so on? Is that the issue?
It's mainly a procedure issue.
Right.
At the same time, there are some regulations which has to be taken. For example, as said, we have in the agriculture field a total liberalization of the market with some exceptions. Exceptions are the dairy sector, where there are some quotas, and the beef sector, where there are some quotas. And there, for the moment, Canada is working on working out the modalities, but this should also be ready quite soon.
Right. And so I must ask this because it's not clear to me, and I realize that Britain has decided to go on its own as part of the Brexit element. How then do you see that the CETA working forward? I mean, I understand clearly countries now will perhaps enter into agreements with the UK on their own, but moving forward, what's the impact of that decision to extricate themselves from obviously the EU as such?
There will be no immediate impact because Britain is certainly will continue to be a member and a full member with all its rights and obligations in the next 2 years. So there will be no change. And we know that the UK is very interested on ratifying as soon as possible also the agreement because also the UK is an important, within the European Union, the UK is an important trading partner for Canada. Afterwards, it's a big question mark because the UK will first, they need to have a kind of a trade agreement, an arrangement with the European Union. UK can, as long as this agreement is not found, they cannot have individual, at the moment, for example, individual member states cannot have a trade agreement with the UK, or UK cannot have a trade agreement with Canada unless the issue is solved. What will happen, which will be the trade regime and the agreement between the UK and the European Union, which we only will know probably in 2 years' time. So it will be not an automatic issue that once the UK is out, automatically they will be able to conclude agreements. It will take time for them.
So just to ensure that I heard you correctly, I think you said that the UK cannot actually enter into agreement with any country that are part of the European market.
Yes, because...
And so a country like Canada, who has now entered into an agreement as part of CETA, so Canada cannot engage in a process in terms of dealing independently with the UK at the moment?
Not for the moment, not during the next 2 years, because trade is an exclusive competence of the European Union. Yes. Trade, agriculture is an exclusive competence, so that member states are not allowed, since many, many years, not allowed to have any bilateral trade agreements, and there are no bilateral trade agreements of individual member states with third countries, but Canada will, of the UK, cannot have any trade agreement in the next 2 years, and then it will depend on the outcome of the negotiations with the European Union, but we foresee that it still then may take some time, and even it will be a negotiated agreement, and it might not take the 8 years that we needed for CETA, but it definitely will take some years.
Right. And I will ask a couple more questions because it seems I'm the only one asking you questions at the moment. But can you help us to understand? I know that I have heard from some farmers who say that this agreement will be a bad agreement for them. It will be dumping of goods, products, and services into the Canadian marketplace, creating hardship for farmers. And then I guess a second component part of the question is I've heard from small businesses who've said that they believe that they would not have access to procurement contracts and so on. And I know you addressed it in your comments, but I wonder if you could just maybe take a little bit more time just to provide some additional insight on those two elements, please.
Regarding the farmers, we had recently here the visit in Toronto of the European Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Mr. Hogan, and the European Commissioner is, it's a complicated word, it simply means is a minister at European level who's responsible for the European Union for Agriculture. He was here to open the CEAL fair, which I also was present. It's extremely impressive, and the European Union was the region of honor this year of the CEAL. And there were, of course, many companies. It was about agriculture and agri-food. Agriculture is, for the European Union, it's 10% of our exports to Canada. It's very important. He had also a meeting with the Minister of Agriculture of Ontario, where we know that also for Ontario, agriculture is an extremely important factor. We see only big advantages for agriculture, and a possibility to have markets for Europeans in Canada and vice versa. So we, the facts plead against this kind of fear, because already now the agri-food sector is an important sector in trade already between the European Union and Canada, and we only see that it will be facilitated and promoted. Small and medium enterprises, we are foreseeing regulatory cooperation for mainly facilitated which means, for example, the certification procedures, a recognition of standards. I'll give you an example. If, for example, a product will be exported to the European Union, any mechanics, if this product is certified by Canada, automatically it has to be recognized by the European Union. For the moment, you have two certification procedures. When an enterprise exports its product to the European Union, it first has to it has to respond to all the requests and standards of Canadian ones, and important in the European Union, it has also to respect the regulations and the standards of the European Union. So that will be, it's a mutual recognition of standards. Another element which will be important is a recognition of professional qualifications, where also we are already working for having the possibility of mobility of certain qualifications. For example, engineers, architects, accountants are already working for this recognition of qualifications. A thing which not also in Canada itself is not always the case that you have a recognition of qualification. It will also allow personnel to do after-sales work, for example, services in the European Union and vice versa. So it's cutting red tape, cutting the cost for small and medium enterprises. But I said we are putting emphasis on small and medium enterprises because they, in the first place, should benefit from this agreement.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. We have some additional questions from members. Councillor Frakadakis.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair. Madam Ambassador, I had a quick question, and it is very Toronto specific. So I was wondering how we as a municipal government can help Toronto businesses take advantage of the opportunity or opportunities that CETA provides.
As I said, we are already in contact with the business communities which are present here in Toronto itself. And we have, for example, created a network of Chamber of Commerce which is based in Toronto and which are giving a lot of explanation also because it's even if trade will be facilitated, it's not always simple to know the opportunity. So this is something where we are working. And another element which I have not touched upon because it's not directly linked with CETA, but the European Union has also some international cooperation programs with big cities, which include, among others, also the promotion of business opportunities. So this is something which we hope will be in addition to the promotion of business opportunities for cities, Canadian cities doing business with Europe.
Thank you, Councillor Frakadakis. Speakers? Okay, I'll speak. Madam Ambassador, I want to again thank you very much for being here. This has been extremely helpful. In regards to your response to the question that was just posed by Councillor Frakadakis, I think it's important to say to you that we are, as a city, very aware as to the elements that are required to garner greater understanding. Part of our role as a city in this committee as economic development will be to help to educate the businesses here in Toronto. It will be part of the provincial government's role, part of the federal government's role. The City of Toronto has recently engaged in what's called the WTC, the World Trade Center Organization, which is an organization operated by the Toronto Regional Board of Trades, and we have been working with them for this very reason, in addition to creating some opportunities for our local businesses. So we're working creatively. I've also spoken with Pierre Pettigrew, who is Canada's chief envoy for the CETA. The Prime Minister has appointed him. He has agreed at some point will come to talk to us with folks from Global Affairs, and we're looking forward to that. I believe that this is a unique opportunity. It's a great opportunity. I realize that for some, it's new and it perhaps has elements of fear, which is natural. And so we have to work through to ensure that businesses who are concerned about the issue of competition, the issue of perhaps being displaced from their business processes and or the opportunities and so on, local businesses who feel that they're too small to be able to compete globally, we have to help them to change the narrative, change the thinking, the focus, and so on. You know, this has opportunities for labor. It has opportunities for investors. It has opportunities for, obviously, the everyday citizen being able to pay less for quality products by removing the tariffs is, in fact, a good thing. It creates opportunities where people will have more monies in their pocket to be able to obviously invest and shop and do the things that they do with their monies. It will create more jobs of those opportunities. And I know that there are some who will say to me, how do you know Michael Thompson, and can you validate that? At the moment, based on all of the research and all the information I've been looking at, it seems to imply that. And of course, it's a work in progress, but I do think that to live in a world where we have barriers, to live in a world where tariffs are creating impediment to growth, prosperity, and economic development doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And what we want to do is to remove those barriers to entry, to create more opportunities and so on. Canadian companies and Toronto-based companies can compete globally. Our products are as good as any or better than many. And I think that we have perhaps been slow to moving in that direction, where in fact we take opportunities of global nature and to look at how we can compete. The technological age and technological development requires us to think beyond simply our borders. And so this is a unique opportunity where the federal government has engaged, and of course a provincial government as part of the process. Over the last 6-7 years, I've been kept apprised. We've had people come in to talk with me and our team here about the progression in terms of this agreement. We're delighted that the agreement is where it is today, and we're looking forward to its implementation. Again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be here, and I know that you'll be meeting with the mayor next, and I do look forward to seeing you again and being in touch with you. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Members, a big round of applause for the ambassador. Thank you. Members, I would like to ask the item number ED 22.13, and I'll deal with this in a second. No, I'll deal with it in a second. Just 1 second. I just want to prompt us. So I'd like to make a change just to vary the order of that particular item when we get to it next. And what I'm going to do now is ask that we receive the ambassador's presentation. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. All right. So, Councillor Frakadakis, we are now going to, again, ask members just to vary the agenda just to allow Reid Coolset to speak on item 22.13, and then we will actually go back to the agenda and we will deal with this particular item later on as its turn comes up. Mr. Coolset, would you come forward, please? You have 5 minutes to speak, sir, and there's a time to your left. Okay. Let me know when you're ready, and we'll start the clock.
Yeah, okay, great. Thanks for
And you're speaking on promoting international running tourism in Toronto.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you very much, and welcome.
All right, thank you very much for having me at this committee meeting. It's an honor to be here. My name is Reid Coolset. I ran in the 2012 and 2016 Olympics in the marathon. I've run marathons all over this world. I have a bit of perspective on what makes a good marathon and what it can do for a city, and I'd like to share that with you guys today. So I've had great experiences at the Scotia-Toronto Waterfront Marathon. One of the reasons why this is a good marathon is because it is a gold label race. There are 5 gold label marathons in North America. So I'm sure you've heard of the Boston Marathon, the New York City Marathon, Chicago Marathon, Ottawa Marathon, and Toronto. So there's only 5 of the top level races, and they do a lot for the city. And they bring in the best athletes in the world. In turn, that allows the best Canadians to race a fast course. So myself and my training partner, Eric Gillis, we qualified for the 2012 Olympics at the Toronto Marathon, which is really important for Canadians because they actually get to see us qualify on home soil. There's a lot of countries that don't have great races, and people are traveling all over the world to try to find these quality races. So another big thing with the marathons is a huge charity component with them. You know, the races that can bring in more than just the world stars, but the charity component, and of course, the inclusivity of all the other people that get to run. So there's the best runners from Kenya, right down to the people who are just out there trying to better themselves and become fitter. So some of my really good experiences have been in New York City. I actually have not run the marathon there. I've been a spectator twice, but I have run the New York City Half Marathon. And a lot of times you hear people say, you know, it's a pain to shut down roads, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I ran the New York City Half Marathon where they shut down Times Square. It's 5-6 lanes wide. Times Square is shut down on a Sunday morning, and people of New York City embrace it. They know it's a big event, and this is not even their marathon. This is their half marathon. When I've watched the marathon, I've watched it at First Avenue, and I couldn't even get a seat at the end of the sidewalk. It's 5 deep, and this is because it's a free event in the city. So if you look at ticket prices across other sporting venues in the city of Toronto, they're quite expensive. And they're not really, they're not, everybody can't just go out and, go to the Maple Leafs game. But you can watch world-class athletes, Olympic athletes, compete for free in the city. And that's, of course, the balance of what time do you start a marathon? Do you do it at 7 o'clock when there's very few drivers, or do it at 9 a.m. when you're going to get a lot more people and give them the chance to watch? But that's probably another discussion. So I believe that Toronto has all the components to make a big race. Like I said, it's a gold label race, so it's one of the 5 in North America, top end. Another thing that makes a good marathon is either you have a fast course or an exciting course, interesting course. So Boston, point to point, is interesting. New York City goes through the 5 boroughs. Chicago is known for a fast marathon, and Toronto is also known for a fast marathon. So it has that component. It has the charity component. We have a great city. We can highlight a lot of cool architectural elements in the city, and to be able to use that space and create a fast course will attract people. These people will come from all over the place, obviously using hotels, restaurants, etc. I'm sure somebody else can talk about the exact numbers that you're going to get, but the economic windfall of 26,000 people racing in a city is, it's pretty obvious that it's a big deal. Some of the other big races that I've had the pleasure of doing were the Berlin Marathon and the London Marathon. So obviously, once again, really big cities. You can look at it as you're closing down Unter den Linden. That's the big road that runs into Brandenburg Gates. But the city embraces it. In London, we run by Buckingham Palace, the Mall, or Mall as they call it there, but it's completely blocked off. And the city embraces it, and it is a big event. So they know in these big cities, when a street is closed, it's a big event, and we definitely can have that in Toronto. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. You're almost at 5 minutes.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
I'm a
I
marathon
wonder if there are
athlete.
questions of you? Okay, there are no questions. Oh, Councillor Kelly to question?
Is there an international organization that authorizes or recognizes these marathons?
Yeah, so it's the IAAF. It's the International Athletic. They took out amateur. Anyways, it's the same organization that oversees the Olympics and the World Championships, and they have a big umbrella of all the different track meets, cross-country races, and road races. And under those road races, you have 10Ks, half marathons, and marathons, and they do all the rankings and for the gold label, silver label, and bronze label.
Is there space in the scheduling out there for a race in Toronto?
For more races?
No, just space. There's a calendar, right?
Yeah.
And is there a space there for us to take advantage of to run a marathon in Toronto?
Oh, yes. So the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon is already a gold label race, and it takes place every October. It's a long running race, and it's already on the calendar every year.
So would you be, if we already have a gold medal race, this would be, or marathon, this would be the second?
No, I'm just talking about really improving upon the big races that we have. So Councillor Fajidakis can help between the race organizers and the city to provide like a better venue and more cooperation.
So upgrading at least one of the races that we already hold, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the times it comes down to which races is it good to block off streets. You don't want to block off roads for every race, but for the big ones that are going to draw thousands of people, you want to have the best course possible, and there's always a juggle between closing off traffic and providing a course that is going to attract people from all over the world to come race.
If we want to elevate one of our already established marathons to that level, would that mean a more aggressive marketing campaign? Would the city be involved in that?
I believe so. The races already try to attract runners from other running expos all over the world. It would be, a marketing campaign, but basically, you just want to have the best venue and then, promote that. I wouldn't know exactly how they're going to go and market it, but I'm sure that's a part of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Holland, question next.
Reid, thanks so much for coming. It's great. And I follow you and Lanny Marchand as well. And I also do half marathons with the city as well. And I've been a big supporter of supporting this along with Mary and I think a lot of councillors. So in terms of what you find, how does it support our Olympians, so our Canadian Olympians, when our city supports these type of racing events?
I feel like I get a lot of good support from the city, especially at these events. We want the big events in Toronto to grow. I know we feel lucky enough that we already have a venue where we can be a part of it. Like I said, I know other people from Sri Lanka, Sudan, particularly those a couple from those countries who have had to come to Toronto or Ottawa to qualify for the Olympics. They don't have the luxury of running a fast marathon in their home country. And I feel that when the Canadian Olympians are running in Toronto, that people pay attention and they're happy to see us compete on home soil versus a lot of the European races take place at our time 3 a.m. in the morning. It's hard to watch, though. This is it's much easier for people to spectate.
Wonderful, thanks. And so you competed in how many Olympics?
I've competed at 2 Olympics and 2 World Championships in the Commonwealth Games.
And the next?
Hopefully. I haven't had that. It's not locked up yet, but.
Sure you will. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holland. Councillor Grimes, a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Reid, thanks for coming down today. You mentioned these gold label races, and there was 5 of them: New York, Boston, Ottawa. Did you say?
Ottawa's one.
Toronto. Who's the other one?
Chicago.
Chicago. What makes it a gold label race? Where's that term come from? And
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that go into that. So I don't know all the exact details, but the main ones are it needs to be broadcast across at least the country, but I think in a certain amount of countries. Now that can be obviously done over the internet, so it needs to be streaming. The other thing too, one of the main things really is you need to have a certain amount of athletes who have already run a certain standard. So if you want to have a gold label race, I believe it's 5, you need 5 gold label athletes. And for a gold label athlete, you would need someone who's finished top 20 at the Olympics or has run a certain time standard on the roads in the past 2 years. That is one of the hardest things to maintain year after year because of the different countries. So I know Ottawa and Toronto, the organizers, they go to great lengths to secure, I mean, the athletes, there's a lot from Ethiopia and Kenya, so it's easy to get them. But then after that, it actually thins out quite a bit. So you have to make sure you have to get that standard of athlete. And that standard of athlete will then, in turn, allow the top Canadians to want to race here as well. Without those athletes, I would probably be chasing times in other countries every single marathon because I don't want to be at the front running by myself. So, and of course, there's a certain amount of prize money. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, there's certain standards. They're pretty rigorous, and that's why there's only the 5 marathons in North America.
So the top 5, we'd have you and Councillor Holland, and we would just get 3 more, we're good, right?
Wow, we're from the same country, so
Now, I hope the chairman gives you a little leeway on this next question, but can you tell me what you thought of the Pan Am Games that Toronto just hosted?
So yeah, I thought the Pan Am Games were a big success, which was great because honestly, my opinion on the Pan Am Games is they're not really that big of a deal when they're in other countries, especially if it's really hot, at least for the marathoners. And when the Pan Am Games came through Toronto, I was really amazed about just really how the city and the country got behind the athletes, how they paid attention. There was great coverage, and I mean, even to this day, the people who did well at the Commonwealth Games are still, talking about those results. If they were a Pan Am medalist, it's still brought up as one of their top achievements, 2 years on now, and it was really great to elevate the profile of the city.
Great, thanks, Reid. Thanks for coming.
Although the marathon course wasn't that great.
That was Councillor Holland's fault, Reid. She set the course.
I just have one question for you, Reid. Which is your favorite marathon?
You know what? Well, I know it's going to sound biased, but the Toronto Waterfront Marathon is my favorite. The reason why is because...
You can stay home, your passport's good.
Yeah, I mean, my personal best, I've run 3 times under 2:11, once in Japan, once in Berlin, and once in Toronto. And of course, the amount of times I hear my name in Toronto is exponentially more than in Japan and in Berlin. So, because of that and the time zone change, I'll give Toronto the nod.
Well, thank you very much, and continued good luck. Oh, Councillor Freck?
No, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to thank Reid
sure,
for coming
please.
down,
Go ahead,
from
Councillor.
taking time out of his busy schedule to come and depute on this matter, and also for representing our country so well in the sport of running, and particularly running marathons.
Great. Thanks for having me. Thanks for accommodating.
Okay, thanks very much. And of course, we'll get back to this item later on this morning. All right, members, we are now moving to item number 2, and it's the Partnership to Advance Youth Employment Pay Leadership. It's the awards. It is, in fact, my pleasure to be presenting these awards, and I know that I will get some assistance from staff and so on. Yeah, that's what I thought too. All right, so this morning I have the honor of turning the spotlight on exceptional leadership and commitments made to the city's Partnership to Advance Youth Employment Pay Initiative in 2016. I also have the pleasure of acknowledging the leadership of 3 city divisions: Toronto Employment and Social Services, otherwise known by its cool name, TESS. TESS. Economic Development and Culture, otherwise known as EDC. Social Development, Finance and Administration, otherwise known as SDFA. Right, new acronyms for all of them. For their roles in advancing pay and connecting youth to employment. 2016 was another banner year for the city's pay initiative. More than 2,300 young people receive one-on-one coaching support from city staff and our community partners. More than 180 employers brought forward employment and work-based learning opportunities for these young people. And more than 1,000 youth found jobs and paid placement with some of the city's top employers. Just last month, Patricia Walcott, General Manager for Toronto Employment and Social Service, TESS, and her team at TESS shared their annual workforce development report with this committee. They showed us firsthand the effectiveness of the demand-led community and city employment partnership like PAYE. We also saw the impact these programs and efforts have on city residents. PAYE Leadership Awards are presented annually to people and organizations that make an outstanding contribution to PAYE. By increasing access to employment opportunities for youth, their contributions are making a big difference in our neighborhoods and our city. Leadership is demonstrated in various ways. This morning, we are taking a moment to acknowledge exceptional individuals and organizations. These honorees are stepping up and making skills development opportunities and jobs available to Toronto youth, tapping into business networks and connecting to encourage like-minded business leaders to join PAYE, and playing a vital role in the development of Toronto's future generation of leaders. Award nominations are carefully evaluated against three core values: impact, influence, and improvement. This year's award recipients reflect these values and more. They are also innovative, inspiring, committed, and visionaries. Our first award this morning is for impact. The recipient is Clifford Henning Pereira, Senior National Sales Manager, Recruit Advice Center, RBC, otherwise known as the Royal Bank. For the past 10 years, Clifford has been a PAYE ambassador and a champion, demonstrating exemplary leadership, innovation, and dedication to the program. Representing RBC, one of the very first PAYE partner employers, Clifford has leveraged his relationship with colleagues across business lines to facilitate the hiring of more than 30 youth over the past 3 years alone. He has also invested considerable time speaking with city staff and community partners about what employers are looking for and about career path in the financial sectors. Additionally, Clifford has attended more PAYE learning, networking, and hiring events than any other partner. In 2016, Clifford worked with PAYE partners Empower Canada to develop Contact Center Professional, a training program providing industry knowledge to inform curriculum design. In 2017, more than 250 youth enrolled in contact center training and will benefit from this expertise. Today, we commend Clifford for his leadership and impact, which has resulted in the meaningful and measurable success for Toronto youth. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Clifford for his commitment and his leadership. Clifford, would you please come forward? So much. That's great. Everybody, nice and tight. Oh. Can we see the center? You're staying behind Mike Williams. He's tall. Our second award this morning is for influence. The recipient is Sondley Forstan, PAYE alumni and customer service representative at CIBC, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce. Sondley is the first PAYE alumnus to receive a leadership award since he joined the PAYE program in 2015 and subsequently found work with CIBC, Sondley has helped to promote the PAYE program by sharing his personal journey with employers and young people who are looking for work. And by the way, can I say you look cool on the bus shelter ad? Thank you. As a guest speaker at the 2016 Mayor's Employment and Job Reception, Sondley encouraged employers to make concrete commitment to pay and to recognize the limitless potential of youth. His story was featured as part of the city's first ever series of workforce development posters displayed on bus shelters during the Workforce Development Month. He has also served as Master of Ceremony at a recent PAYE Contact Center Learning and Networking Forum. But leadership is also at work when there's no cameras present and no applause to be had. In addition to his public role, Sondley has also mentored, motivated, and encouraged new PAYE cohorts by attending bi-weekly outreach and information sessions at his local test employment center. In these sessions, he shares his personal stories, offered advice to young job seekers, and even draw attention to the job opportunities at CIBC. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Sondley for his personal story and for his influencing employers and young people, young job seekers involved in the PAYE program. Sondley, would you please come forward? Thank you. We'll make sure everybody has a chance to take photos. I'll let these guys first. All right. Our third and final award this morning is for involvement. It's awarded to no stranger to involvement, an organization that is. United Way of Toronto and York Region for their network program addressing youth unemployment requires effective collaboration. For the past several years, United Way and city staff have worked together to align our youth strategies, leverage capacity, and also to close the system gap. Networks is a signature program of United Way Youth Success Strategy. Is a coordinated approach to career-oriented networking which offers a new way for youth to make the type of connection they need to find meaningful career opportunities. Since the Networks program was launched in 2015, close to 800 young people have been connected to 300 volunteer mentors from 11 different employer partners. In 2016, this committee endorsed a recommendation which was also approved by City Council to onboard 150 mentors to participate in Networks, making Toronto's the program's first public sector employer partner. Accepting the PAYE Leadership Award for involvement on behalf of the Network program is Nathan Chong. He's the Director of Youth Innovation for the United Way. Nathan, would you please come forward? Mike is late. Yeah. Gentlemen, and I realize you're all gentlemen, actually, and I know that there are some women involved in the program as well. Members of the committee, if we could take a photo with the three recipients all together in front here. Members are all on their phones, I realize that. Let's go. Okay, moving right along. Oh, so then I'm going to ask for a motion to receive the item. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. That's done. We are now on ED 22.3. We have a presentation from staff. Ms. Walcott, you and your team are here. And I believe you have some other guests with you as well. Is that okay? I'll allow you to introduce them.
Thank you very much to the chair
You ready to go? Okay. Okay.
for the opportunity to present to you
Is
today.
your mic on?
We are,
Is your mic on? Your microphone.
so I'll start again.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you to the chair and committee members for the opportunity to present here today. The following presentation is going to provide you with an overview of what we've termed Construction Connections, which is a sector-based workforce development program aimed at providing construction skills and training and employment opportunities to job seekers from economically disadvantaged communities and equity-seeking groups. Construction Connections aligns both the workforce development and poverty reduction objectives, as it provides a pathway for people to move from poverty into good quality career opportunities through a supportive systems of skills training, union membership, social services, employment connections, and job retention support. It's not just about creating jobs. Rather, it's about training and supporting job seekers to be prepared to get to connect and to be prepared and get connected to employment and career opportunities that are arising from all the construction that you see around you. Specifically, we are focused on apprenticeships and employment opportunities resulting from publicly funded construction projects, including the province's significant infrastructure development initiatives, the city's social procurement program, and the various community revitalization projects across the city. The first local infrastructure project that Construction Connections is working on is the Eglinton Crosstown. This past December, the Premier of Ontario announced that this 5-year, $5.3 billion project includes a community benefits declaration. The goal is that 10% of all trade and crafting hours needed for the project will be performed by apprentices and journey persons who live along the transit corridor and who have had trouble finding jobs. This community benefits declaration was made possible by the collaborative work of partners across government, labor, business, and the local community. These same partners have been working with Tess to design and implement Construction Connections. So you're going to get some details now about the partnership and the scope and objectives of Construction Connections in this presentation.
Construction Connections, building careers and communities. A construction sector workforce development and employment services hub for job seekers and employers in Toronto. As part of a broader workforce development pathway pilot in the construction sector, Construction Connections is a sector-focused, one-stop shop that links Toronto job seekers with training, employment, and career supports, while providing employers with suitable, qualified candidates. Construction Connections has three main objectives. Help job seekers navigate the construction training and apprenticeship system by providing career and employment planning services through dedicated sector-focused case management. Provide a pipeline of suitable, qualified candidates for construction sector employers seeking apprentices and other skilled workers. Implement a sector-based workforce development pathway model that is built on strong partnerships across a wide range of stakeholders, including government, nonprofit, charitable, private sector, labor, and community organizations. Who is involved? Leadership is provided across several organizations, all working towards a common goal of helping to achieve an inclusive labor market. These organizations work together in partnership through three main bodies: a senior leadership table, an advisory group, and a service delivery team. Partner organizations contribute to Construction Connections in several ways by providing strategic leadership, project planning and coordination, direct or in-kind investment, expert knowledge and advisory, or direct service delivery. This partnership model has many obvious benefits, including the ability to combine knowledge and resources for greater collective impact. For example, as part of this pilot project, the Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Development has contracted the YMCA to work alongside TESS staff in an integrated service delivery team, resulting in an increased capacity to provide more job seekers with focused, high-quality construction sector career planning and employment services. Construction Connections serves both the supply and demand sides of the construction sector labor market in Toronto. On the supply side, Construction Connections is designed to support job seekers in Toronto who need help the most. This includes low-income residents facing economic barriers, residents of neighborhood improvement areas, and equity-seeking groups who have been historically underrepresented in the construction sector, including people from racialized communities, women, and Aboriginal people. Considering the prominence of the apprenticeship system in construction, there is also a specific focus on youth aged 18 to 29. On the demand side, Construction Connections has an initial focus on supporting employers connected to three types of construction development projects in Toronto: publicly funded infrastructure projects with community benefit commitments, starting with the Eglinton Crosstown Light Rail Transit Development. Projects identified through the city's social procurement program that includes workforce development requirements, and community revitalization projects that improve or increase subsidized housing. It is anticipated that Construction Connections will be able to support the training and placement of construction trade apprentices and other skilled workers required for several projects across these types of developments. The numbers, types, and timing of jobs available varies within and across construction projects. Members of the Construction Connections team are continuously working to ensure a balance between the needs of the supply and demand sides of the equation. What does Construction Connections look like, and how does it work? Construction Connections is a sector-focused workforce development and employment services hub where case managers work with job seekers to assess their needs and develop customized employment service plans for a career in the construction sector. Located at the TESS Employment Center at Yonge and Eglinton, TESS and YMCA staff work side by side to provide a full suite of employment planning and preparation services, including construction trades information, including training and employment prerequisites, soft skills coaching, customized essential skills training, social supports, including mental health coaching, pre-employment training such as health and safety certifications, direct access or referrals to pre-apprenticeship and trades training programs, connections to financial benefits for clothing, tools, and certifications, and job placement and retention supports. This one-stop shop approach increases access to services when they are needed and improves the consistency and continuity of services provided throughout and across individual employment service plans. By working closely with labor councils, trade unions, employers, and developers in the construction industry, Construction Connections staff can ensure that job seekers who need help the most are assessed for the right aptitudes, provided with the most current and relevant training, and equipped with tools and supports they need to perform on the job. As a result, Construction Connections can serve both the immediate human resource needs of employers and the long-term workforce needs of the sector. For Toronto and the region, Construction Connections provides a valuable opportunity to apply and learn from an integrated approach to sector-focused workforce development planning and management. Lessons learned from this model can help inform future efforts to create similar workforce development pathways for other employment sectors and geographies. Construction Connections has already begun to provide information and orientation sessions to a range of job seekers, starting with residents from communities across the Eglinton corridor. Staff will continue working with job seekers, community agencies, labor unions, trades training providers, and construction sector employers to build a strong pipeline of suitable, qualified workers for future employment opportunities. Construction Connections, building careers and communities.
So thank you very much for your attention. I'd now like to introduce three speakers who will provide their perspective on Construction Connections. The speakers in order are John Cartwright, the president of the Toronto York Region Labour Council. We have Rosemary Powell, the executive director of the Toronto Community Benefits Network, and Pedro Barada, who's the Senior Vice President, Strategic Initiatives and Public Affairs at United Way Toronto and York Region. Long title. So I'll start with you, John.
Yeah, good morning, councillors. As you know, I'm the president of the Toronto and York Region Labour Council. I'm also the co-chair of the Toronto Community Benefits Network. And it's the TCBN that negotiated with Metrolinx and the province in order to be able to create a framework that would see the outreach to diverse communities and bringing candidates from those different communities into the trades. So I started my trade at the age of 18 and was a cabinet maker, woodworker, but then when house prices skyrocketed to $30,000 for a detached home, I decided I had to leave woodworking shops and go into construction, but I was lucky because I knew a member of Carpenters Local 27, and I was able to phone him and say, how do I get in? How do I start an apprenticeship? What is this all about? Fast forward to today, and the reality is that there's many newcomer communities where people don't have that knowledge or somebody that they can phone or talk to in a coffee shop to say, how do I even start an apprenticeship in the industry? And the ability of the Construction Connections to be able to take the reality of construction, which is a whole different beast than regular jobs and regular careers, and be able to help people navigate how to get into our industry, how to start a real career, is going to be vitally important. One of the things that we've said to the United Way and our social service agencies as we've gone through this process is none of our training centers wants calls from 30 different agencies saying, I've got somebody who really wants to be an iron worker, a carpenter, an operating engineer, a sheet metal worker. they want to have some sense of order, and people who've actually been already counseled as to what's really expected, to know that those people have the qualifications required in order to be part of that apprenticeship training. So we think this is a vital part of developing a culture shift within our industry where, you know, the most recent waves of immigrants and refugees in this city find the opportunity for great careers in our industry, and we very much support the initiative of the city and working with Maisdy and the province in carrying out this effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rosemary. Thank you, John. Thank you, Matt. So I'm Rosemary Powell, with the Executive Director of the Toronto Community Benefits Network. We represent the community's voice at the Construction Connections Leadership Table and Advisory Committee. TCBN is a 73-member strong community labor coalition, which includes 9 of the largest construction trades unions, with a base of grassroots groups and community organizations, including social enterprises, workforce development agencies, some of whom provide pre-apprenticeship training. Our community labor coalition is structured in a way that channels the community's issues, concerns, and proposed solutions into the organization's decision-making process. We use the approach of negotiating community benefits agreements into major urban development and infrastructure projects to create jobs and opportunities in the construction industry for historically disadvantaged communities and equity-seeking groups, including youth, women, racialized people, newcomers, urban Aboriginals, and veterans. TCBN signed Ontario's first successful community benefits framework with Metrolinx for the Eglinton Crosstown and Finch LRTs. The expansion of infrastructure that is envisioned for Toronto will result in opportunities for good jobs in the industry. The Build Force Construction Industry Report highlighted that the industry will need to attract over 100,000 workers in the next 10 years to meet existing needs and replace workers who are set to retire. Yet in many of Toronto's neighborhood improvement areas, where the preponderance of people who are disadvantaged live, unemployment has remained persistently higher than federal, provincial, and city levels. Here is our opportunity to reverse this trend. Construction Connections, which by the way is also a beautiful name, is a key system intermediary that will help to facilitate successful recruitment of diverse communities into the construction industry. Construction Connections is a response to recommendations that the TCBN made to our funders, the Atkinson Foundation, United Way, and Metcalf Foundation, stemming from a labor market partnership study and resident engagement process we conducted in the mid-2015. This process demonstrated a success in reaching those furthest from the labor market. It also demonstrated that there are huge information gaps between the workforce development system, the building trades training centers, and the communities they serve. For example, data we collected from over 330 potential workers showed that 78% of them were not registered with any EO or TES agencies, possibly because they were working precariously and underemployed, which otherwise could be a vital support in helping them to understand the different pathways to negotiating the different trades. The requirements and intake processes of the construction trades is complex, like John has said, for even the most seasoned workforce development staff, yet alone a newcomer venturing into the trades. We see Construction Connections as a partner with the community, providing much-needed resources, including wraparound support for aspiring apprentices, coordination of services, and creation of new approaches to training and workforce development in consultation with the existing service delivery agencies. We have seen a great openness by TES and the ministry to work in true partnership with the community, and so we are pleased to partner with Construction Connections in the goal of contributing knowledge and resources, as well as to help identify systems issues and joint solutions. Feedback from our membership can be leveraged to inform policy and practices and to guide in the planning and implementation of service delivery that is inclusive and sensitive to the needs of residents. We see the Construction Connections pilot, when successful, could become a model that can be applied province-wide in infrastructure projects that have community benefits agreements and social procurement programs. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to follow John's lead and also start on a personal note. When my parents immigrated from Portugal in the mid-1980s, my father had absolutely no problem finding a career in the trades, and that opened the doors to many opportunities, including a great summer job for me that not only allowed me to pay for university, but has also really saved on my home repair bills, I must say, and gave me the opportunity or the choice to follow a career in the trades or elsewhere. For many of the young people who we work with in neighborhoods across Toronto, be it Weston Mount Dennis, or Lawrence Heights, or Flemington, or East York, or Dorset, or many of the communities in and around the Eglinton Crosstown, that choice, that opportunity is simply not there. And we have seen the reality of youth unemployment that affects particularly youth facing multiple barriers become worse and worse, alongside just the reality that employers who are looking for skilled labor is also there's a mismatch problem. We've known this now for a long time, and I think it's fair to say that as individual organizations, our approaches and our programs have been getting a lot better. We've become much more focused on not us, but the people who we're serving and the employers who we're trying to engage. But what's been lagging, I would say, is that sense of integration and coordination across all of these great programs. So we've made moves in terms of breaking some silos. I think the PAYE awards today and the fantastic work that Tess and others have been doing in terms of integration through networks and various programs have brought various partners together. But the scale of the crosstown just allows us to take this kind of integration and bringing our different assets together in a whole new way. So we're in a position now where in the past we have had programs that have been operating sometimes, quite frankly, like ships in the night. And we have an opportunity now with the City of Toronto coming forward with its fantastic assets around TESS, together with MAISD and the province, with labor on board. We have some of the biggest construction companies at the table working with us, like Ellis Dawn, SNC Lavalin, and Aecon through Crosslinks. They're the ones who are going to build the crosstown, and they're sitting with some of the best-in-class agencies that have been mentioned, like the YMCA. And United Way is very happy to be a part of this, because outside of the technical aspects of workforce development and training and all the requirements that you need in order to become a construction worker, for youth facing multiple barriers, wraparound supports like coaching, mentoring, connections to childcare and housing, just even somebody to call who you know and who understands where you come from is really critical in getting you from point A to point B, because it's not always a straight line. So what's at stake here? Yes, it's a great program. Yes, it has incredible potential for this one individual pathway, but we're thinking scale. And we're thinking about the reality that the Board of Trade has borne to light in terms of the need, the net growth for demand in construction. 150,000 skilled construction workers are going to be needed over the next 15 years. That's net growth. And where are they going to come from? And where are employers going to find them? So we're very happy to get in the middle of that equation and to make sure that we create a one-stop shop, a new approach that really streamlines how employers looking for skilled workers and young people looking for opportunities find each other and actually have the opportunity to get ahead. So for us, we see this as a triple bottom line venture. It's really good for business. It's really good for our economy. And it's really good for our community. And ultimately, the kind of city that we want to build is one where everyone has opportunity, where prosperity is shared, and where we're building things that help us move around, be housed, and create the kind of world-class city that we all want to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, Councillor Grant to question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Councillor Grant. Sorry, a visiting councillor. I didn't realize Councillor
I
French
just
had an
wanted to
interest.
ask Mr. Barretta, one of the things that I've noticed, and I'll also be asking our staff is there's not a good layer of support for youth that aren't on OW, that aren't on some kind of assistance. So if they are working a number of precarious jobs, there just doesn't seem to be anywhere to go for them to get support to enter a program or to get the training. And I'm wondering if you're thinking about that or how you're grappling with that.
Complex issue, great question. We're actually very heartened to see that at the same time that this meeting is happening, we're seeing the provincial government put forward some recommendations around precarious employment and employment standards that I think are at the root of a lot of the changes that we're seeing, and some of those protections are key. But you're right, as Rosemary indicated, when we have worked together to go out into priority or neighborhood improvement areas, we find that there are engagement tactics and engagement approaches that are not very mainstream, and that we can employ in order to engage communities that are normally left out of the mainstream workforce development system. And I think investment in a lot more engagement and outreach and bringing people into some of the services that are available is certainly one key aspect of what's missing. I also think that as we're doing with this project, we have to think, we have to recognize that not all young people go on a straight line from point A to point B when it comes to employment opportunities. And the further away you are from the labor market, the more supports you're going to need. And sometimes it's easy to just cream, right? It's easy to just, employ and go after those young people who are closest to the labor market. And we have to do the heavy lifting and leverage all of our assets to make sure that we're actually not letting anybody fall through the cracks. And I think that that's the kind of approach that we're really pioneering here.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Grimes, a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask one to John. 150,000 in the next 15 years, that's a staggering number. It sounds like the transportation industry, look at the drivers are declining. But when these young people come to you, I'm sure they ask, what can I get into? They're kind of lost when they come to you, right? And my understanding is there's some trades that are dying for young people to get into, and I think masonry is one of them. The kids don't want to do it. So do you encourage them to get into these trades where, I guess you ask them what their interest is first, right? And then will you say, well, this is the masonry trade, you could, you'll get a better job, or better chance of getting a job in masonry? How's that work?
Well, actually, I just spoke at the Bricklayers Convention on Saturday. We provide people with a full range of what the trade opportunities are, including the educational requirements. Sometimes there's counseling done around particular aptitude, and there is more promotion of the civil trade side of it, ironwork, masonry, carpentry, cement finishing, laboring work, which in Toronto is not just somebody pushing a wheelbarrow. It's construction craft worker, it's actually an apprenticeship. So there's a lot of these occupations that are available, not just for young people, but in fact, there are 2 of our programs right now working with Syrian refugees, and many of them actually have skills in masonry, plastering, cement work, and we're actively developing those relationships right now. We even have health and safety courses run in Arabic by Arabic instructors in order that we can integrate, even those newcomer refugees that are here.
Great. Those are my questions. And I'm sorry, the 150,000, that was in Ontario or in Toronto?
That's an Ontario figure.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Councillor Kelly next, and then Councillor Frakadakis.
I would have thought that in an information age, that the ability to know what's going on out there and to connect would be far better today than it would have been in the past. And yet it doesn't appear to be that way. How do you explain that disparity between the 2 contexts?
Through the chair, I think some of the disparity is a lack of knowledge and a lack of where to go to get the support and the guidance. I don't think these things are just found on the internet, that you can just find the information in a straightforward way. The industry is very, very complex, as John said. Many, many trades, the union situation, the apprenticeship, the many partners involved and employers. In the past, we had a simpler system in a way, with certain industries controlling and kind of directing people where to go, and I think we're losing some of that. So we're hoping that this spot, this hub, will help to demystify some of this work.
The one thing that all these kids hopefully have in common is their education. They go to school. And are you working in any way with guidance counselors in the secondary school system?
We're doing that through partnership, particularly with the United Way, around the wraparound supports. They're the ones that have the kind of connections that would get people skilled up and choosing a career at a younger age.
Are you critical of the inability of schools to get this really important information out to these kids? Because they're the ones that have that close physical contact and relationship.
Well, unfortunately, we're dealing with people once they arrive and they're out of the school system. But I agree with you, we need to get to young people earlier.
I hope this isn't irrelevant to the discussion that we're having today. But, you know, there are a lot of older people who, because of the churn in their industry or business, are unemployed unexpectedly. And yet these are people who are craftsmen in their own right, who work at home. One of my brothers was a senior executive, but at the same time, he had this incredible woodworking operation in the basement, and he made fabulous furniture for members of the family. I got a great poker table out of it. Is there any way to address this segment of society? Older workers lost their job, but they're talented with their hands. Any outreach to help them as well?
We have a report that's going to be discussed later today about the makeup of the Ontario Works caseload. And in that report, we do acknowledge that a proportion of people on Ontario Works are older or more mature workers. But the majority are still young people. About 29,000 people on Ontario Works are below the age of 29. So you're right, it's trying to get that balance, to get a range of programming that meet that balance. And we do have workshops and programs for older workers and more mature workers as well.
Would it be fair to say that in a city of immigrants, and Toronto has been that right from the very beginning, that it's been the parents of immigrant families that have taken these jobs, and that their kids wouldn't be as attracted to those jobs as the parents were, and so you may, in a way, have a tougher sell than previously?
Yes, through the chair, I do think it has been a tougher sell until you describe the salary ranges that might be available.
I had a plumber over at our house recently, you're right.
The sell is becoming easier. They're stable jobs and they're very well paying.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Rakadakis.
Mr. Chair, so your presentation mentioned the YMCA, and I was wondering if you could elaborate a little more on their role in this program.
I'm sorry, what is their role? They have been contracted by the Ministry, the Province of Ontario, the Ministry of Advanced Skills and Education. So this pathway is not just for Ontario Works clients. It would also be for clients normally served by Employment Ontario. So rather than doing these things in a silo, we're doing it together. So they're fulfilling the delivery role that normally would be done by an Employment Ontario agency, and the Y is one of them.
Okay, great. So how do job seekers find out about this, other than through a couple of ways, through this program like PAYE, but I mean, outside of this?
We've already identified about 900 clients through our partners, like the Community Benefits Networks, through our own roles, and through Employment Ontario. But we will be advertising as things ramp up as well through our employment centers and through Employment Ontario.
Great. John, you talked about outreach, and I was wondering if you could walk us through some outreach efforts.
Yeah, the Community Benefits Network did a series of 8 community engagement meetings with the key communities along the neighborhood improvement areas, Somali community in Mount Dennis, Weston, Bangladeshi community in South Scarborough, the Middle Eastern community in Thorncliffe and Flemington, Filipino community in Scarborough, Ethiopian Eritrean community in Scarborough. So really trying to engage community leaders because going back to Councillor Kelly's question about why don't people just know this when they go on the internet. A lot of people know about being a carpenter or an electrician or a plumber. But nobody imagines an elevator constructor as an occupation, a plasterer, a glazier, a tile setter. Those things aren't broadly known out there. And so trying to make sure that when we go and do these community engagement meetings, people are fully apprised of what the full opportunity in terms of craft opportunities are is really important. And just filling in on another question, a number of the EO agencies, such as the Labor Education Center that we run, has adults coming in through labor adjustment who've lost their jobs or been newcomers who are not 18-year-olds. They're in the prime of their middle age. They're looking to move, and there's also the ability for those people to get referenced back to this organization so that they can find a way into the industry.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Speakers? Anyone to speak? You had the staff. Patricia, welcome. It's staff.
I just want to say I think this is fantastic, and it's such a structured way of bringing people to employment that wouldn't have that access. It's about access, and it's about access to good jobs. And thank you to all the people that are together working for that and for the partnerships that we have with them. I'm just going to note the one thing that I asked, and which is if you're not on OW, if you're not on Ontario Works, if you're not on assistance, it's actually hard to get the leg up because there doesn't seem to be a structure for you to get an entry. And I'm well aware of that in assisting a young man trying to get into firefighting. And there's certain things, and I think we should look at that from our end, certain upgrading that might be required that would then give that person access to a good job. So this is an incredible bedrock structure that we've got here now, and now I'm looking for that value-added enhancement for those who are working 3 days a week at Parks and Rec, 2 days a week at Foot Locker. They're put together an amalgam of so many types of jobs in order to make a little bit of money. None of it is full-time. They also want to step into a good job. They're not on assistance. There's no real structure for them at the moment, and I don't have a solution. I'm just raising that here. I think I've spoken to the Deputy City Manager about that before and her team. So I just want to flag that this is really looking after a great number of people, hearing that there's 29,000 people on OW below 29 years old in the city. That's a really important stat. And then there's a layer of youth that are really trying to pierce a good job or get into some of this training that might need a little upgrading. And the well is dry for them. There is nowhere for them to start. There isn't a counselor for them. There's no fund for them. And I'm very concerned about that, and I'd like us to figure out a way to address that. But thank you very much for all the great work that you are doing.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fletcher. Anyone else? No, seeing none. I too just want to lend my voice to thank you for the collaboration and certainly addressing some of the challenges that are being faced by individuals who you're offering to assist. And I think the point that the councillor has made, which is if you're not on OW, then it appears that you don't have that access. But I'm aware that there are some efforts being made to try to deal with this. I don't know how comprehensively it is, and I think that's an issue, and I suspect that Ms. Walcott, you will be discussing that further and bringing obviously an item forward to indicate how we can address this issue. I mean, the trades are really important, extremely important. I mean, you don't have the trades, you don't have a place to live, you don't have many things that we tend to take for granted and so on. And I know Councillor Kelly is right. The trades now are beyond doctors in terms of the returns that they're making and so on. I had a fellow come to my house recently, and it was on a weekend, and he was on his way out of town for the weekend with his wife, but he came to stop by to do the work that needed. He pulled up in his nice, beautiful Porsche, actually, and it was fantastic. And so, you know, we tend to think of the trades of being sort of, you know, people are just getting by, but that's not the case at all in terms of the trades. I mean, they're working really hard and so on. And I think what we're hearing is that at the same time, there is not enough, and then there are people who want to be in the trades. And how do we help that next generation of tradesmen, tradeswomen, and so on in order to learn the fundamentals of the trade about how to be safe on the job, how to do the job, and the whole collaboration that's necessary and essential to ensure that not only the job's being done well, but people are actually safe, and so they can go back home to their families, like many other types of organizations are always focusing on ensuring at the end of the day they go back home safely and so on. So there's more work to be done, and I'm delighted, though, that the work that's being done is actually being done. And so thank you all for your presentation. And I note that we don't have anything in terms of other than the presentations here. I understand it's online now, Madam Clerk, so it's available online, so folks who want to go and see this can actually see this. And I simply want to move receipt of the presentation. So all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Thank you very much. All right. Moving right along, members, we are now moving to ED 20, I guess 22.4A and 4, because we have the report from the Film Commission, correct? And so I'd like to ask Councillor Fletcher, who is the chair of the Film Board, and also Jonathan Aye to come forward, and they will be presenters. And then we have a list of speakers who will actually speak after to the item. I'll call your name at the appropriate time. So, Councillor Fletcher and Jonathan, are you all ready? Then I can start the green button. You would like to know who they are? The one here, right, okay. That is Councillor Paula Fletcher, member of Toronto City Council, representing, I would say Beaches, but it's not Beaches Woodbine, it's a Danforth.
It's Leslieville and Riverdale.
Leslieville.
Ward 30.
Riverdale. And your ward is number?
Ward 30.
Ward 30. Councillor, now you know. Thank you. Councillor Fletcher, I think Councillor Grimes is trying to have some fun at your expense.
You know what? He was having some earlier, too, so.
He's all about fun, Mark.
He is.
So I like hanging around with him.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We're just going to spend a minute here today outlining the strategic plan that's been developed by our film board, I guess over the last 6 months or so. And we do have a very strong film board, and I'd like to acknowledge Councillor Kelly, who sits on the film board from Economic Development, and of course the chair of Economic Development, who is a film champion the world over. And thank you very much to both of you for your work. We have my co-chair here is Councillor, not yet, or maybe never. Maybe one day, Jonathan Ahe, he's with NABET. We have a very large number, 21 members on our film board representing the industry. We had a very good process for this. We've been working in small groups, our working groups, refining the areas that we believe are very important for a strategic action plan, one that we can actually implement. So I would like to very much thank Zabe Sheikh and his team at the Film, Television and Entertainment Office for the great support, and of course to the General Manager of Economic Development for seeing us through there, and to Ben McIntosh, who had the daunting task of writing everything up that we came up with and has done a very good job. So with that, I'm just going to ask Jonathan to present the main 5 points for our strategic action plan for the film board.
Thank you very much. So there's key 5 points that comprise the plan, building on the 5-point plan created by the mayor and informed by his business missions to Los Angeles, with input directly from Toronto film, television, and digital media board stakeholders, as well as many industry stakeholders that took part in the formation of the plan. The first point that I'd like to bring your attention to is active advocacy. The plan envisions the city as a leader in advocating for the film, TV, and digital media sector with all orders of government. As many of you are aware, provincial and federal tax credit policies that are stable and in line or better than competing jurisdictions are essential for a healthy industry. The city can continue to advocate alongside the industry for these stable tax credits. The city can also advocate for informed policy decisions at all levels that support and evolve along with our rapidly changing sector. The second key point is strong fundamentals in physical infrastructure and human workforce development. Physical and human infrastructure expansion is required to ensure that we can not only maintain what we have, but also to expand and create opportunities and jobs for the future. The plan calls for the city to assist industry in creating studio development and to help address the challenges to and demand for location shooting in the City of Toronto. Alongside physical development, the plan also calls for the city to develop a workforce development strategy with industry and education partners to help build the crew base and depth needed to address not only our current needs, but the demand that comes from such positive growth. A third key point is customer service enhancements. The plan is recommendations designed to build on our already globally recognized image as a film-friendly city, positioning the city as a central point of contact for productions with a new concierge service, simplifying film, television, and digital media production in Toronto. The fourth point, globally recognized innovative digital media sector. The plan recommendations are designed to build on new technologies and identify actions that will expand our position as a leading DM sector by bringing companies and labor together to foster collaboration and innovation. Fifth point here, dynamic branding and strong international and business partnerships. Toronto is known globally as a film city, and that reputation builds on the even more important reputation the city has as a premier city to live, work, tour, and play. The plan's recommendations are designed to seize opportunities to enhance the city's branding as a leading screen-based production center and promote our high-quality domestic and international productions developed, shot, and posted in Toronto. Further, the plan ensures that while we continue to promote the city with some of our most important clients based in Los Angeles, we also look to international clients who are developing award-winning, culturally important, and highly profitable content from India, China, United Kingdom, Ireland, and others. This is just a quick intro into the renewed strategic plan we have put before you, and not only do I encourage you to review it further to see the great work the industry and city partners have done to help build both the industry and the city, but I encourage you to adopt the plan both here at Economic Development and at City Council in the future. I'm able to answer any questions you might have.
And I'll just finish up by saying this is the second strategic plan that this board has done since it was created, I think, in 2004 or 5. And as you are well aware, because you've had the presentations from Mr. Sheikh, that this is a $2.2 billion industry and growing, and particularly the digital sector is up and coming, and television is an important part of our film mix here, shooting mix in the city, but also acknowledging it's an extremely competitive industry. And even since we've started the strat plan, there are some other cities that are starting to really come up, Atlanta being one of them. Vancouver's pretty steady out there because it's close to Los Angeles, and we are always having to come up with those policies that the city actually can come up with to ensure that we maintain our competitive edge, that being Toronto as a well-recognized film shooting, television shooting location and digital media location for this really important industry. Film is number 3. There's food, finance, and film. Those are the 3 big industries in the city. And it is really important that the policies that we develop and tailor are part of ensuring that we maintain the strong industry in a very, very competitive environment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions? Senators? No, it's pretty clear. Okay, thank you both very much. And Councillor Fletcher, if I can just say, and Jonathan, certainly you too, your outstanding work and leadership does not go unnoticed with respect to this particular sector. The energy and the passion that you put in this is absolutely amazing, because in some instances, without your passion and your tenacious nature, may I add that, actually, I think that we would be lost with respect to some of the elements that are perhaps pushing back on the industry, particularly space and the location and so on. And so I just wanted to acknowledge your great work, and Jonathan, your leadership. I know that Councillor Fletcher called you councillor a moment ago. I know that in your leadership in your union is one that is spectacular, and I know that your members are well served by you. So thank you both very much for being here. And we have some more work to do, because I told Mr. Sheikh that if we don't get to 2.5 billion, then we have a problem with him. So he's smiling, so he's going to get to 2.5, Councillor Fletcher, and we're going to help him to do that. So, right, Jonathan? Thank you both very much. I do have a few other speakers. Certainly no stranger to this committee in her capacity now and or any other capacity in the past. Ms. Sarah Kerr-Harnell is here, a member of the Toronto Film and Television and Digital Media Board. Sarah?
Thank you very much.
Ready?
Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson, and thank you, all of you, for allowing me to come and speak today as a member of the Toronto Film, Television and Digital Media Board. I was one of the founders of the original board in 2004-2005, as Councillor Fletcher says, and we've come a tremendously long way. I want to thank this council, this committee, for continuing that level of support. You were there at the very beginning, Councillor Kelly, as of course was Councillor Fletcher and Carol, and it was, it was tough going to get everybody swimming in the right direction at the beginning. What we have now is a result of tremendous coordination and cooperation between the city and the industry. The industry has engaged much more deeply with the city, devoted much more time to be of assistance, to offer business opinion, and the city has responded by strengthening the tools and resources in terms of staff that we have to help us. I want to give a big shout out right from John Livy, who has been championing the industry, through to Mike Williams, a team working with Zabe, Eric, and Michelle, and all of those unseen champions in the permit office. There's been fantastic support from the city to the industry. This strat plan today builds on that earlier strat plan and all the growth that we've been doing now that we are so in sync with each other, both the city and the industry. We're very, very pleased with the process. Ben, as Councillor Fletcher said, Ben had to have the patience of Job, working through a very rigorous process, both with city folks and with industry folks, to arrive at this strat plan. We feel very confident about its strength, that it does no harm to either the city and its goals or the industry and its ability to grow. We're very, very proud of this work, and we encourage you, please, to accept and recommend this strat plan forwards.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for Ms. Kerr-Harnell? Councillor Kelly? Councillor Fletcher? No questions? Okay.
Go ahead.
No, he has no questions. She has no questions.
Would it be fair to say that this report is asking the City of Toronto to walk the talk? Like, it's easy rhetorically to support certain objectives. You know, yes, the movie industry is really important. Let's do everything we can to support it. But beyond that, you actually have to do things. You have to, as I said earlier, you have to walk the talk. And that often is the most difficult thing for any organization to do. But do you find these recommendations reasonable?
Thank you for your questions. First of all, yes, I do find these recommendations reasonable, but your point is, your point is well taken. that it's an ongoing, you can't just approve this strat plan and think everything's going to be fine. As we learned through the first few iterations, and you were there and are still with us in this endeavor, it's an ongoing reminding staff, reminding councillors of unintended consequences, which is really what it ends up being usually, not anticipating unintended consequences. And so that's one of the reasons the industry has been more deeply engaged, more time every week. As Councillor Thompson identified, Councillor Fletcher and Jonathan, they work hours and hours and hours every week on behalf of the industry on a variety of these recommendation pieces. And the staff work, they're very receptive, and they work very hard to help us as we try and educate and move forwards. And we need to learn too, right? Industry always has to learn from the city so that we're not doing harm inadvertently in our fervor for things.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. Anyone else? Okay, see none to speak. Councillor Fletcher, did you wish to speak?
I Councillor Grimes said I already spoke. I would just encourage, which I did, encourage the support for this.
I was giving you another opportunity.
Thank you.
As a visiting
Thank
member.
you. I will. I will encourage the support for this and acknowledge as well Councillor Kelly has brought up and Ms. Coronel has spoken to, that this board and its working groups are functioning at a very high level. And the interaction between staff on key issues that the city's grappling with, the TO core issue, filming locations, development on the waterfront, that all of these things are active issues with the film board. And it's a great relationship between staff and the board, bringing it through here for different policy suggestions. It's actually working in a very good way. And it is a strategic action plan, as Mr. Williams wants it to be known as. It's not simply a sit-on-the-shelf strat plan. I think that everything in here is doable and implementable. And with our strong film board, including you, Councillor, we can accomplish that over the next couple of years.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Fletcher. Councillor Grimes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Sarah, Jonathan, and Councillor Fletcher for their presentation today. And we always, hear Councillor Kelly and Councillor Fletcher's name being big supporters, and you can add my name to that list. I've been the benefactor of having Cinespace, the McCopples family, move out to the west, the old Consumers Glass building. I was out there with Councillor Fletcher not too long ago with the mayor supporting it. And when I got in there, it was the first time I was in, I got my juices flowing, and I asked the McCopples family to tour me through the studio. And I think on Sarah's point, educating councillors, I think every councillor should go through that studio or any studio to see what happens behind the scenes. I've since gone through there twice. It's amazing. And on that last presentation, the last item we had about jobs, the jobs that are available in that industry, from costume making to set design. It was amazing to hear those opportunities. I wouldn't even have thought of that, but it was spectacular to see. And we had a great presentation laid out to Councillor DeChano, was also with me, that these directors are coming to Toronto with briefcases full of cash that all stay here. Everything happens here, from props, the companies all around it. The support all around it is amazing, but you can add my name to the list. I'm going to move the staff recommendations, Mr. Chairman, with pleasure.
I didn't see him, though. That's right. Is Dave Hardy here? Dave, you're over there. You're supposed to be over here. Sorry. Yes. I was looking around. I didn't see him. I should have called your name. So, Dave, you wanted to speak, right? So, members, we're going to just vary and go back to Dave. I think I saw him, but I didn't see him. Dave, how are you, Dave? Welcome. You're out of place.
Thank you very much for asking. I'm well, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak. And of
course,
first of all, I just thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Grimes. I will throw in there that you may have left out one big film industry setup in your ward, and that's William F. White, the country's largest provider of film equipment, cameras, the like, at 800 Islington. You know that, you've been there. My comments are very brief. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I am one of the working group chairs on the film board. My particular bailiwick is customer service enhancements, and I think what I'd like to just, my only real comment is that I was party to the previous iteration of a strategic plan, and we spent a day with a facilitator, and it was all very wonderful. But my feeling is that strat plan was crafted, finished, and went in a drawer, and nobody really thought too much about it. I can guarantee that this strat plan will be a working document that we refer to regularly, and we hold up as a real roadmap for relationship between the film industry and the city and beyond, frankly. It's really a system and a series of best practices as opposed to perhaps a strategic plan that will be, again, something that is an overarching document, but the best practices are something that is very important. We have done a lot of study of other jurisdictions, what some other places do right, what we could do better, and I think we've come up with a document that addresses the 5 key areas that we really have to address, and it was a very, very laborious and fruitful process, I think, and I'd like to echo what Sarah Carharnell said, and the co-chairs, that we thank staff for the amazing amount of work that they put into this. Ben will be having PTSD, I think, for some time to come, based on the revisions and the wordsmithing that he had to sustain from his the board members. Anyway, I hope that the committee will see fit to pass through the recommendation and the strat plan to council, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dave, and apologize for not having seen you there. Yes, we have questions for you, Dave. Councillor Kelly, you take a question?
I noticed that Atlanta is being increasingly referenced as a competitor. What the hell's happening down there?
Money.
In what way?
It's been a kind of nascent jurisdiction for a long time, but the governor, I think it was a combination of a governor and a private investor, one of the wealthiest people, certainly in the Southeast, the gentleman who runs Chick-fil-A, the whole Chick-fil-A empire. And he was convinced that investing in the film industry would be a good idea. So they attracted a studio development company, Pinewood International, and they said, we want a film industry. And they built stages and are continuing. They've been building stages for the past 4 years. They have probably more than Vancouver now. They are a juggernaut in the US. They are probably the 3rd jurisdiction after Los Angeles, New York. Vancouver, Toronto are in that mix too, but not certainly in the top 3.
Why this enthusiasm, almost internationally, for the film business? And when I say film, it's film, TV, digital media.
I think to a certain extent it's an offshoot of the internet. What has changed the game in the last 3 years has been the advent of the over-the-tops, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, soon to come Facebook, YouTube, all these massive vertically integrated companies that are primarily in the internet space are looking at original content, and they've started to produce very high-level, high-quality content that is attracting all of the stars that heretofore would only show up in feature films. They're getting money thrown at them. I can tell the members of council and the committee that House of Cards budgeted Toronto before they ended up in Baltimore, and it was about a $100 million production for the first 2 seasons. So, suffice it to say that we're always in the mix in this city for being considered. But, there are many very enthusiastic competitors, certainly around North America and beyond.
You can't rest.
I beg your pardon?
I say you can't rest on your oars.
Not for a second, because there's always a jurisdiction that pops up that wants the business. And South Africa is a perfect example of that now. They've been in the game for a long time, but have recently put far more investment in than they ever have. And I've heard, from Toronto producers that it's a fantastic place to be. Long flight, but, you make up for it on costs.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. Seeing no one else, thank you very much, Dave. Okay, Councillor Grimes?
Dave is correct. I have been there. Huge employer in South Etobicoke. I was remiss in adding them, but they are a huge complement to working together with Cinespace. So with that, I'll move the staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Grimes. Councillor Kelly to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first thing I want to say is that the film board is comprised of great people. I mean, these are the people in the field. They're in the business. And they bring an enormously wide spectrum of experiences, dreams, and skills to this very important part of our economy. In my questions, I referenced a phrase that all of us are familiar with, and that's walk the talk. That's really difficult to do, walking the talk, and I'll illustrate it. Received a phone call last night from someone who said, I'm shooting a movie, I want to shoot a scene in one of your parks, and I've got to bring in a rain machine because I have to integrate this scene with a bunch of other scenes that happen to have rain featured in them. And parks are going, oh, I don't think you can do that. And I appreciate what Parks is saying. I chaired the Parks and Environment Committee for a while, and I love parks, and I appreciate what they bring to the city. But here's where, the rubber hits the road. If you have that commitment to the industry, then you've got to find a way to get that shoot approved in that park. We have to be creative in our responses, but whatever happens, we've got to make it work. Another thing that has come to my attention, and I don't know whether it's always been there or it's a new policy, if you're shooting in downtown Toronto, of course, you bring all these trailers and trucks and you park them at the side of the road. You've got to pay, if there's green P parking there, you've got to pay for all that green P parking. And that can add up to a fair dollar over time. So those are two illustrations of the principle that I think is contained in this report. The city is being asked to walk the talk, and I don't think that request, as it's formulated in these recommendations, is unreasonable. I think it's very important for us to pass this document and make sure that it's in play going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. Anyone else to speak? I too want to just lend my voice, but Councillor Kelly, I just want to pick up on the point you make about parking. We are actually quite competitive in this particular area, and so I know when I was in New York and spoke to the Deputy Film Commissioner there about how they deal with some of these issues, they grapple with the same challenges that we grapple with as well, and I think our team are actually doing their best, and I know that generally, I mean, our efforts is more focused on revenue neutral to ensure that we don't lose the income. But I get the point that you make, because you have to be nimble, you have to be quick, you have to be responsive and so on, and you have to, in fact, ensure that we're able to respond to the need, because sometimes they're rather quick, and we've done so in a number of areas and so on. But the industry continues to grow and to develop. There's great competition, as has been stated. I was in South Africa and had a chance to see what they're doing there. And of course, the weather seems to be delicious every single day. It's amazing in terms of the weather there, and it's an industry that's developing. Clearly, we have talented men and women in this city who are the people who work in their craft and the development and so on. The digital age has also added additional features as well. The mayor and I, we were in New York, Los Angeles, and we were there at a studio, and they actually were able to make a call to Toronto and to connect with a studio in Toronto for us to see how they were actually setting and structuring the scene that was already filmed, and how they were actually laying it out, lighting it, layering it, and so on. It was all being done digitally by someone in the studio here. Conversation took place with us in the studio in Los Angeles and so on. I make the point simply to say that we're really strong in the variety of sectors in this industry, but none of us are actually resting on our laurels. We realize that the moment we slip, whether or not it's Vancouver, Atlanta, and other places can actually overtake us and so on. We've learned that this last year was a great year, first in history in terms of the revenues that came into this industry and so on, and we need to continue to move forward. We are deficient in specific purpose-built facilities. We're deficient in space, and we are abutting now this whole effort by many to develop what is non-film related buildings because they think that they know that they can make money with other types of development, if you will. So there's a lot of pressure, and I know that the point I was making earlier with respect to Councillor Fletcher fighting to make sure, for example, the Portlands, that whole area and so on, doesn't become sort of sea of condos, for example, and to displace the industry that we want to ensure continues to thrive. The mayor has been very clear in terms of his support for the industry and the efforts to talk to leaders and so on. When we were in Los Angeles, we met with leaders of all the different businesses there, whether or not it was Disney, Netflix, and so on, CBS, NBC, to talk about Toronto. Toronto's well-positioned, well-placed, well-respected. And as you heard, Dave talked about, that House of Cards. It was Toronto was supposed to be that place, but obviously didn't turn out so. But Toronto is top of mind, and we have to continue to make that happen. And I just want to simply close by saying the leadership of Zabe Sheikh has been extremely terrific in his working with the industry, his acceptance by the industry, and the cool shoes that he wears when we travel, actually. Those are actually pretty cool. It's, so thank you very much. And so we're moving to receive the presentation. Yeah. So we are going, as has been asked by Dave and others. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Yes, Councillor Grimes moved the recommendations and so on. And so we're going to move the committee's recommendation and move that, direct that to council for their endorsement. Okay? Sorry? Recorded vote. Okay, so we're voting on the items. Okay, Madam Clerk?
All those in favor of adopting the item before us, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Holland, Chair Thompson, Councillor Grimes, Councillor Fragadakis. That motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Okay, members, Councillor Fletcher, thank you. All right, moving right along. I can do the following. We had a speaker for ED 22.5. That speaker has declined to speak, and we're fine with that. So we actually can simply move receipt of that particular item. All those. It was, sorry. Adopt the recommendations that are in the report. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are now moving to ED 22.6, supporting the growth of Toronto's fashion sector. I have a number of speakers. The first speaker I have is Rick Franey. Rick Franey?
You want to hear speakers or presentation?
Oh, so, well, yeah, no, let me hear this. Who's presenting? Staff, right?
There's a staff presentation.
Yeah, I'll hear the speakers first and we'll get the staff presentation. Mr. Franey? Is that you, sir? Fantastic. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. You have 5 minutes to speak, sir.
Thank you for having us here today. I am on behalf of the involvement of an organization I belong to by the name of the Ontario Fashion Exhibitors. We are an organization that is a marketing body that has been together since 1955. we have presented North America's longest running fashion trade show for over 60 years. And it's very reassuring to see your support for the fashion industry here today, in that I don't see anybody naked, listening or not listening. We are a billion-dollar marketing body, much like the Ontario Food Terminal down the road. Rather than fruit and vegetables, we do all forms of apparel and present product to the retail sector through various importers, manufacturers, original designers, all the way from pediatric to geriatrics, with some very big names involved, as well as some not so big. In the beginning, there were the originals, Marilyn Brooks, Wayne Clark, Hugh Garber, and one very special lady, an authentic woman, an original designer, an icon, also a retailer, and the owner of our city's largest fashion apparel manufacturing factories, Linda Lundstrom. It was quite gratifying to be a part of her organization and see 200 people earning their living in a factory that she owned up until 7 or 8 years ago. And she is now part of the Sewing Circle and also teaches through George Brown. Ontario fashion exhibitors have launched and marketed many other well-known Canadian names: Joseph Ribkoff, Frank Lyman, Franco Mirabelli, right from Toronto, Robert Kitchen, Parker's Knitwear, Piccadilly. But we are also one of the best kept secrets because we are a business-to-business trade organization. We'd like to stop that right away and lend our energy and our expertise to the Fashion Advocacy Council. Thankfully, through the initiatives of Ashley Frost and a lot of good people that also sit on that council, we are creating a synergy that has never been put together before. Yes, we have had a fashion week here in Toronto. We no longer have one. There are reasons for that. We're here to take care of business and get on with things. We enjoy at our shows, known as Market Weeks, which have been held in the King Edward, the Royal York, various hotels. We enjoy visitors from all across Canada, up to 2,000 actual buyers and people who are there to do business. There's a lot of shows that go on where it's about runways and hors d'oeuvres. We're about business and hors d'oeuvres. We're where the rubber meets the road in the fashion industry. Sadly, the only present area with runways and steady traffic as of late has been the 2 GTA airports. We would like to lend our help, our energy, to the cast of designers, big and small, the Fashion Incubator, and the various other sectors within the fashion industry through the adage and the philosophy that nothing happens until somebody sells something. And it was very gratifying to hear Councillor Kelly say, we need to walk the talk. Canadian Music Week and TIFF have very clearly demonstrated to the world that Toronto is a world-class entity as far as the film industry and the music industry goes. It's very reassuring to see that the show Suits did choose Toronto as a place to shoot. It's also quite a nice omen that perhaps Suits might be elevated to a higher degree and an eventual show in Toronto like none ever before. With our experience and viability, we are capable and very eager to collaborate in a world-class Toronto event, one that will not have the carpet pulled from underneath it. Our show, as it exists, has over a mile of aisle carpet. We have over 2,000 brands and labels on display. And as I say, it's been a closed-door event, but the ambition is to perhaps bring it alongside an event open to the public, one that was like Fashion Week, and one that offers a venue for the public to come to.
5 minutes, sir. Could you just wrap up, please? I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. Through the efforts and the initiative of the Fashion Advocacy Council, we as an industry have come together as never before. May we now count on your support as never before as some of my colleagues here today will elaborate on the ambitions and desires. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation, sir. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you, sir. I'd now like to ask Kathy Chang, founder and president of Redwood Classic Apparel. Ms. Chang is no stranger to this committee. In fact, she is one of our secret weapons in terms of selling the city globally as part of our communication videos and so on that we present to the world. Kathy, thank you very much for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Kathy Chang. I'm the president of Redwood Classics Apparel. We are a diverse certified full-service apparel manufacturer that's proudly producing on Toronto soil since 1988. My family business has almost tripled our direct workforce since my father and I have become business partners in 2009. As a supply chain partner to notable global brands, we in turn support employment through our own operations and our supply chain partners within the business of fashion. My family of makers and our brand partners are stakeholders in Toronto's fashion industry. And I'm here to support Recommendation D, which is there is a need to develop a very skilled labor pool to ensure longevity of Toronto's fashion manufacturing industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chang. Are there any questions? Councillor Frakadakis.
Thanks, Kathy, for coming out and speaking. You said that you supported Recommendation D. Did you have any issues with the other recommendations, or you support all of them, or D in particular?
D in particular, because part of our challenge right now is there's a huge disconnect between skilled labor pool readily available for me to continue my business. Again, you know, we have almost tripled the workforce. Obviously, sales is important. We are finding that there is there's a movement to support local and to buy local, and we're fortunate enough to be part of that supply chain.
Thanks for the clarification.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much. Councillor Holland, a question.
Yes, Chang, thanks so much. So you were mentioning the diversity part as well. Tell me about that.
So the City of Toronto, I am very, very proud to say that I believe we're the first Canadian city that has implemented diversity in their supply chain and procurement. So actually, as a women-owned business and a minority-owned business, we are certified under CAMPC, Canadian Aboriginal Minority Supplier Council, as well as WEBE, which is Women Business Entrepreneurs, as well as We Connect. And We Connect is an international certification as a diverse certification that represents 22 regions globally.
That's great. And sorry, and through the chair as well, you were saying that it's expanded. So it was your parents that started the business, and then it's expanded since 1988?
So my father founded, we're your typical immigrant story. My father and his brother and sister founded the factory in 1988 with 5 people and 10 machines. We're going to fast forward to the 90s, and we were directly employing close to 500 people, and this was all direct. WTO happens and everyone goes offshore. We had, especially in 2008, the financial crisis was quite challenging. We had built an infrastructure which the business landscape could not support anymore. And therefore we went through a huge restructuring, and that's when my father and I became business partners. And from there on, we've been supporting Made in Canada. That's a big hashtag for us, and just building the business in the sense of giving back. That's the main reason why we continue to produce on Canadian soil. Again, we're immigrants. I'm an immigrant myself, and I want to give back to this amazing country that has given us so much.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Councillor Kelly, question?
Where's your factory located?
In Scarborough, McCowan, and Shepherd area. Yeah.
Just had to get that in, right, Councillor Kelly?
We've got 3 of us here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me. Kathy, could you could you help us? And I know that you talk a little bit about labor and so on. What are some of the other issues and challenges that are facing your industry and you in particular? How is, for example, energy?
I think at the end of the day, apparel manufacturing, as much as we'd like to automate it, and I hear there's a lot of technology involved, I think digital can enhance our efficiency. But I always say, even though it's a sewing machine that's operating, you need the operator, and that really determines how the quality of the apparel comes through. So in terms of what is required, it's just really skilled laborers. We need to have that training in place. I think what has happened is there's a huge disconnect in what is starting to finally happen in developing that skilled labor versus what's available. We need to commercialize our products. That's how we stay alive, right? And we're at the bottom of the totem pole in terms of supply chain. So we're very fortunate to some degree that there has been great supporters of our factory and of our makers.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davis?
Are your employees all your employees? They are employees of your company?
Yes.
Not employees of a temp agency?
No, then there's indirect, right? So there's direct and indirect. So as an example, approximately 60% of our fabric right now that we consume at the factory level is domestically knit. So I didn't even count the knitters that are helping us here. So in terms of being global, yes, we are importing yarn because it's just not available here too, right? It's a delicate balance to have a purpose in your business and at the same time be able to keep your doors open and continue to create the employment.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Davis. All right, seeing no one else, our next speaker is Anjali Patel. Ms. Patel, come forward. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My remarks are about 2.5.
No problem. Thank you.
My name is Anjali Patel, and I'm a lawyer and trademark agent in Toronto. For the past 2.5 years, I've been assisting independent designers through my law firm, Blue Chip Fashion. Prior to this, I was an associate at a boutique intellectual property law firm in Toronto and an articling student at Borden Ladner Gervais in Ottawa. I'm here today to speak to a report spearheaded by Laurie Balzac entitled Supporting the Growth of Toronto's Fashion Sector, and provide additional feedback from 4 of my clients, Greta Constantine, Sid Nigam, Bo Fee, and Lucienne Matisse, who are women's wear designers. By the numbers, they have collectively been in business for 32 years, employ 27 staff, are sold in 144 doors, including Net-a-Porter.com, Holt Renfrew in Toronto, Bergdorf Goodman in New York, and Joyce in Hong Kong. They have also dressed Sophie Trudeau for high-profile events and platforms, and collectively earned 10 nominations and 4 awards from CAFA, the Canadian Arts and Fashion Awards. By all metrics, they are successful small businesses with local roots and international recognition. In preparing my remarks today, I asked these designers the following question: what are the top 3 ways that the City of Toronto could support your business? Their answers might surprise you. Apart from one designer, the rest were at a loss to suggest how the city could help them. One said, "I'm unsure of what purview the city has." Another said, "I really do not know the answer to this question." A third said, "I can't think of anything the city could do for me." These reactions point to a twofold opportunity for the city. First, to better communicate the services that the city offers to independent fashion designers. Second, to increase support for entrepreneurship, specifically export development assistance, a design tax credit, and government grants, which are recurring themes from the Fashion Industry Roundtable and Toronto Fashion Industry Survey, as mentioned on pages 2, 6, 7, and 9 of the report. Regarding export development assistance, one designer explained to me, most brands do not yet meet the requirements for many different export programs that support other industries. Tailoring some program streams to fashion would allow more brands to attend trade shows. As stated on page 8 of the report, support is not being provided by senior orders of government, and without support from the city, we risk companies moving production to other provinces who do support the sector. In my experience, this is true, as one of my clients, who is a women's wear designer, moved to Montreal at the end of April, citing rising costs of doing business in Toronto. Lastly, as stated on page 8 of the report, I agree that a fashion industry advisory panel would be well suited to advocate on behalf of the industry to the provincial and federal governments to increase support for entrepreneurship, specifically export development assistance, a design tax credit, and government grants. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions for Ms. Patel from visiting members of committee? Okay. Seeing none. Members of committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much. I'd now like to ask Robin Kay, founder, Toronto Fashion Week and president, Fashion Design Council of Canada. Ms. Kay, you're no stranger to this committee. It is wonderful to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
You have 5 minutes.
It's a pleasure to be here. I haven't been in this room, but I've spent a lot of time in the front yard. And at that time, the city enjoyed that excellent visual of Fashion Week being built here. And I thank the city for, and it was David Miller at the time, I think, and then over to David Pico Square. So I'm here to support the report that Lori wrote. And I'm here, I think, to describe perhaps a way that this can be done very simply. The good news is everything is in place. There are many problems and challenges and bad designers and not great clothing, but the industry is in place. I think that we were called one of the best cities to live in. We've been noted in Monaco as, lots of arts and culture. And designers are working and growing. Of course, there are long-term, larger goals that we would like to meet. But if we can have a very tiny view of what Lori has spoken to, and so yes, I built this. It was very hard to build Fashion Week, but we built it. There was not lack of local support. Local support was tremendous. IMG, being a global firm owning and operating 28 Fashion Weeks around the world, was to grow the event. I think it was a disconnect between an American and Canadian way of doing business and culture. The IMG's leaving opened the doors for many other associations to begin to host fashion events, to give designers more choice. What I see as a critical issue that I feel a new committee would establish would be the link, the necessary link between governance and designers to promote and endorse culture. For us to be able to have the City of Toronto logo on an event or on a designer's website is significant enough. If IMG leaving took that road for us to be in this room, this is great, because this is long overdue. And in order for us to be more than what we are, we need to have a strong foundation. And we do not have a foundation without city recognition, identification, and endorsement. Most of my notes refer to this idea of forming or reestablishing a fashion council, or, perhaps an outside council that the city would speak to. There's many groups, really great groups in the city, many new groups that have experienced opinions, that have, membership that could be part of it. And Lori's been championing and working in the industry, somewhat of a lone wolf. So I'm totally pleased that we've come to this point, because everything else is in place except this part. And this part, sadly, is not only here. I'm able to say that fashion in Canada is an orphan industry, that we are forced to check other on the census, that in my works in selling Fashion Week has been to try to include the definition of the sector, to include the sector within the current definition of the creative cluster. This would give a designer the reality that they live and work in as a pillar of culture and commerce in Canada. If we can begin this as a blueprint model for other provinces and as a signal to the federal government, it would be very powerful. So the good news is everything is in place if we can activate this. The bad news, I suppose, is it hasn't been done yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentations. Questions from visiting members of council? Seeing none. Take this into committee. Members of committee? Okay, seeing none. I'm sorry?
There's another name on the speakers list.
Yes, I will get to that, Council.
Oh, sorry.
I'm asking if there's any other questions for this presenter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ashley Froese, we'll foresee. Ashley? Oh, there you are. Thank you. Hi, how are you? Ashley, you have 5 minutes to speak. Just look at the clock here on the left.
Absolutely. I will speak as fast as I can. Thank you
No,
so
take
much.
your time, please. You have 5 minutes.
I got a lot to get through. So thank you very much for doing this, and thank you to Laurie for really spearheading this. Just to give a little bit of context, I'm a fashion and branding lawyer, partner at a Bay Street firm, and really I'm a service provider to the industry. I hold a lot of leadership and mentor positions within 4 of the major fashion institutions in Toronto, and I also obviously have a lot of clients spanning across the fashion industry. The common theme that I keep on seeing, and I support the report wholeheartedly in its entirety, the one thing that is a constant theme that I see with my clients, with the organizations that I volunteer my time with, is it's limited access to money. And this was a theme that was sort of interwoven throughout the report that Laurie was so good to put together. And it's my belief that the fashion industry, it needs to and deserves to be viewed as an economic ecosystem that is very interwoven within the fabric of this city. And it has a trickle-down and a trickle-up effect. When people think about the fashion industry, and sometimes people can be a bit dismissive and they don't view it as a viable business industry. I don't believe that at all. And I think that when you view the industry, you have to compare it to the film industry and the TV industry, that it is a viable economic ecosystem. You have designers, manufacturers, laborers, artisans, importers, exporters, agents, photographers, editors, advertisers, retailers, hospitality, logistics, media, educators, commercial real estate, transportation, app developers, technology. It's a lot wider than just a fashion show or just some pretty dresses. And what I see is that the Toronto fashion community, it has a robust infrastructure that's ready for investment and to really go to the next level. We have well-established educational institutions that are feeding the next generation. We have well-established incubators, business incubators, accelerators, trade shows, consumer shows, fashion shows and events almost daily. And I think that the City of Toronto, I understand that there has to be a give back for the City of Toronto and there has to be some kind of investment for the City of Toronto. And I do believe that Toronto is well positioned to be the hub of the fashion industry, absolutely in Ontario, and I think also within Canada. And I think now is the time for Toronto to almost usurp Montreal's position that it has had within Canadian fashion industry. I think that there's a lot of benefit to Toronto in investing more strategically in the fashion industry. Clearly, there's a great opportunity for labor, for skilled trade, for tourism, to really creating a tourist sort of ecosystem. Also, it enhances the lifestyle for inhabitants too, from the cultural perspective. And I look at, I've done a lot of research on why the sort of provincial federal government has cast aside the fashion industry as a viable industry to significantly invest in. And I look to other comparable industries such as film and television and digital media, which clearly federally and provincially and on the municipal level, these levels of government are investing in these comparable industries. There's a lot of similar characteristics with the fashion industry. It's rooted in intellectual property. It's easier to rip off. It's a consumer product. It's exportable. It relies on an ecosystem. It's a mass market commodity that you can really generate significant income out of and revenue from. And I think that one of the most fundamental ways that Toronto can assist the fashion industry is to really help us. And I do believe that the fashion industry does need a champion, and the Toronto City is well positioned to help on the municipal level, is to champion the fashion industry to be viewed as a creative and cultural industry, so that we have the same access to opportunities that other comparable industries do have. And so that's sort of my position on this, and I think that it's great that this is happening.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions from visiting members? Seeing none. Take this into committee. Members of committee? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Members, those are all the speakers that I had. I would now like to offer an opportunity to members to question staff, if you wish. Are there any interest? Seeing none? Okay. All right. We will then go to speakers. Visiting member, Councillor Davis, did you wish to speak on this issue? Nope. Okay. Bring this into committee. Councillor Fragedakis to speak. You have 5 minutes. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Speaker. So I'm happy to support these recommendations that are before us. I actually want to take this opportunity to publicly thank everyone who's come out to speak out today in support of Toronto's fashion industry. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank Laurie Belzak from Economic Development and Culture, who's been toiling in the fashion industry at ECDEV for many years. I won't say how many, because I know you're still 29 years old. I also wanted to say that I've been a huge supporter of fashion my whole life, not just because I love pretty things and pretty clothes, but because my mom was a seamstress. And so this is actually quite personal for me, because for as long as I can remember, I actually helped my mom cut fabric and pin stuff and do a lot of the fittings. So it's I know how important of a sector it is. So I want to thank Laurie. I want to thank the industry for coming out to speak to the importance of making sure that we have the skill sets that we need for this industry to continue to thrive, and the supports that the industry needs from government, from all levels of government. But in this building, I mean, we can do what we can do from the city's perspective, and hopefully the industry can leverage that to get support from the other orders of government. So it's been a very interesting year chatting with members of the fashion industry at the round table in December. So thank everyone for that opportunity.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fragedakis. Anyone else to speak? Councillor Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, when I'm talking with students about the job that I do as a counselor, or we do as counselors, I often tell them that we govern on behalf of the future. I think the future is going to be a lot different from the past that we've experienced. And what I'm seeing is a interweaving of film, TV, digital media, the music industry, and fashion. And I think that it's really, really important to recognize that and to make every effort to give the fashion industry in this town the assistance that I think that they need and they expect, and frankly, they deserve. I have to let you know that I served as the co-chair of the Fashion Industry Liaison Committee back in the day. Councillor Ajamari was the other co-chair. Loved the experience. My wife herself could probably keep the industry alive. And I don't say that pejoratively. She's a very fashionable young woman who appreciates the talent, the time, and the skill that goes into creating the fashions that we wear either every day or on special occasions. So I would urge this committee, and through it, council, to support the recommendations that are presented to us today in this report. Atlanta as a challenger, Montreal, Montreal tends to be bicultural. We are multicultural. I mean, the stuff, the dynamics that we can bring together in the fashion field are incredible. So let's do our very best for them, because the best is yet to come.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Kelly. I just wanted to add my voice. I want to thank Councillor Fragedakis and from a committee who has been, I would say, very energized, wanting to ensure that we didn't lose track of the industry. I recall the conversations we've had. You were very clear. There's a need to ensure that we stepped up to do what could be done for the industry, and in fact, ensure that the industry would have a, I'll use a term, a second perspective look from our perspective, because we were always looking at the industry. I guess to a large degree, we were never sure as to what the industry's needs were. And unfortunately, as Robin Kay has pointed out, it's taken perhaps a bit of disruption to allow us to then take a more global, comprehensive look. We're there now. The staff and Laurie Belzak has been, well, I guess, if you don't mind me saying, Laurie, you are an institution in the industry in a very positive way for your diligent work and your efforts to ensure you support the industry. It hasn't gone unnoticed by me, the time we've spent in visiting locations and so on, whether it's the incubator or there's just the discussions we've had. So I think that for us, by us, for us, we now have an opportunity to obviously resurrect what has been a strong industry, and Robin Kay has had such a history in this space, not only with the Fashion Week, but your years of developing an industry that was very primary and has resulted in your retail empire that you built and the fact that you've made contribution and so on. So it's not lost on any of us. The presenters who have come today, all, and Kathy Chang, who I know quite well, and I visited her facilities and see the operation. We talk about her globally, and I'm so proud that she's not trying to go offshore to make a product so that she can simply make a dollar. It's all about creating opportunity and so on. So the for us, by us comment that I made earlier is that we now have an obligation to ensure that the recommendations that are here in the report are addressed, and there'll be other things that we will come forward with, and obviously that will come forward from the industry. It's about how we work together to ensure that this industry, as the speaker pointed out, that this is about economic development. All of the other things and criteria that we use sort of, and we do to check mark, whether or not it's film, manufacturing, IT, technology, and so on. It's all here in fashion. And there's a lot of money in this industry, and a lot of creative people and so on. So I can tell you that we are strongly in support of the recommendation, strongly in support of the industry, strongly in support of our ability to collaborate and so on. I suspect that between now and council, there'll probably be a need for maybe, Councillor Fragedakis, a motion of some kind to kind of maybe look at an advisory group that will provide direction and so on from industry and collaboration perhaps with maybe your leadership. Councillor, if you wish to take that on, maybe you and I can work on a motion that could be incorporated here so that we don't lose track of this, so that we do see a situation, as we've done with the prosperity agenda, that we come, sorry, Ms. Gay, not now, we can talk after, as we do with the, did with the prosperity agenda, we had something coming to this committee on an ongoing basis that dealt with the continuum of doing something as opposed to the assumption that something was being done. It's going to be tangible, right in front of us on an ongoing basis so we can build on it. The presenters that have all come today, I suspect that you will all want to have a place at that table for us to continue that particular process, because for us to leave this unchecked, that will be a sure sign of for defeat. And defeat isn't part of the option. We want to be fashionably successful, right? So thank you, and those are my comments, and I know the item has been moved, so all those...
Point of order? Before we vote, I move a motion to finish the agenda.
Okay, just before we vote, motion to finish, complete the agenda. Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
And ask for a recorded vote on this also.
On this item? Okay. All right, thank you. Councillor Grimes is asking for a recorded vote on the item. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor of adopting the item ED 22.6, Councillor Kelly, Councillor Holland, Chair Thompson, Councillor Grimes, Councillor Fragedakis, that motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the presenters as well. Okay, so members, we are now moving to item number 22.8. I had held that item, sorry? Oh, no, sorry. No, we're fine. We're 8. We're moved. Pardon me? Yes, that's 8. I know, but we're going through the agenda. We'll get to 13. No, no. So 22.8, the profile of Toronto's evolving Ontario Works caseload and so on. Ms. Walcott, I wonder if you can just maybe give us a quick overview as to the report, and then we will allow members to ask you questions on that, okay? So I wonder if you can just go to the...
Well, thank you very much. Through the
Ms. Walcott, can you go to the end here, please?
Oh, he wants me to go down there?
No.
Indeed, it is easier to see down here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present this report. The idea of the report, presenting the report, was to give you some of the rationale for some of the strategy that has been taking place in Toronto Employment and Social Services. So you'll get some idea about how the caseload has been evolving, how the age groups have been drifting to the two ends, older workers and youth, and the difficulties and barriers that people have to getting back to work. So we have 4 key approaches that we're trying to address these problems that you see in the report. Number 1, we're trying to decrease our administration so that we spend a more proportion of our time on case management rather than the financial side. So we are trying to streamline, automate, make it easier to access. We're trying to make more investment in case management, one-on-one supports with our clients to make sure that we develop a plan to return their life to life stabilization or on the route to employment. By the time that people come on OW, they are really at a breaking point. Only about 20% of our clients actually say they're ready to work. 51% don't feel they're ready to work anytime soon, and that has a variety of reasons. We are tailoring some of our programs to do more intensive case management. And number 4 in our strategy is really trying to go to the root cause of why they're on OW. And often that is life stabilization issues such as childcare, poor health, housing, etc. So I know that often you're interested in numbers, so I would just say to you that we have 29,000 young people on Ontario Works, and we have 24,000 people ages 20 to 64 on OW. 34% of our clients are on OW for more than 36 months. So that is a very, very long time. So I hope that gives you a bit of an overview of why we're taking these approaches, why you're seeing some of the reports come forward that are a bit more innovative, that focus more on partnership and deeper into the caseload.
Great, thank you. You have a couple of questions. Councillor Davis and then Councillor Bernetti. Sorry, Councillor Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what I have gleaned from your report is that we're having more people staying much longer on social assistance and are farther from the workforce than we've experienced before.
That's correct.
And many more proportionately who are older, unemployed workers who can't access the labor force. So can you so I understand the administration part, that we're losing money because of the uploading, or the reduced caseload means we are getting less money for administration. And at the same time, the caseload is more complex, and we need that money to provide more specialized programming. Have I got that right?
That's absolutely correct.
And that we've asked the provincial government to recognize the complexity of the caseload and to recognize the additional costs that we are incurring, and that, in fact, last year we had a shortfall of 17 million or 18 million that we absorbed in the budget. Yes?
Yes.
So how much, have we had a response from the provincial government?
No, we're working with them now on a new funding model. They are recognizing that the caseload is more difficult to serve.
Right.
Currently, we are funded strictly on numbers,
Right.
not on the difficulty of the caseload. But we are now pursuing a different funding model. And part of that, of course, has to be around modernization. So a lot of the administrative work that we do today needs to be automated, streamlined,
Right.
et cetera, so that we have a reasonable chance of getting investment in our caseload.
I just want to know how much progress we're making with the province, and is there anything more we should be doing at the political level?
I think we're making good progress. We are a co-designer with the province of Ontario. The City of Toronto in particular is a co-designer with the city, with the province around modernization and also around the funding model.
Oh, okay, I was going to ask you, it's the funding model that I was most curious about. Okay.
I do have bilateral discussions with the Deputy Minister every month, and that is on our agenda this week, actually.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to understand better, several years ago, we took a position that there needed to be, I know you talk about more planning and it's case work kind of planning that you talk about, more individualized planning with clients. But we talked about more structural change around looking at planning for the city or for the province even, and to look at roles and responsibilities. So still, employment services are funded by the provincial government, and other language services and other services are funded by the federal government. And it never felt to me as though the employment planning and obviously providing pathways to employment is our number one, or one of our goals, although you're shifting to a bit more to personal, I forget the wording, stability or something like that. And I agree with that completely. There's some people, I think, who will never be employable for a number of reasons. But this overall planning with the province and the federal government around how we develop a workplace strategy or a labor market strategy tied with social assistance so that we have an overall plan for the City of Toronto.
I will.
A table somewhere, a table where those discussions are happening. Like, I don't get a sense that the federal and provincial and municipal governments are working together with common objectives, common goals around reducing or improving employment in the City of Toronto, or anywhere in Ontario.
Okay, through the chair, I would say that the training and employment service network is a very complex network. You are quite correct. There are 3 orders of government that deliver these programs. The province of Ontario, though, has now committed to developing an integrated training network. And there are no key announcements at the moment, but we have been working on an integrated training network
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Davis.
between the province and and the municipalities for OW clients.
Thank you. Councillor Holland, question?
Wonderful, thanks so much. And Ms. Walcott, amazing work that you're doing with Tess. It's really great to see. So your feeling, or your stats, your feedback is that the average time, that the wait times, or the times that people are on OW, it's a lengthier period of time. I know we were discussing yesterday about sort of that connection point between, we can do sort of all the skill building, resume building, and I've seen this so many times before with all of these different organizations that help with the resume writing and helping especially newcomers prepare for entry into the Canadian workforce. But the connection is really who you know, not what you know still. Are you finding that that sort of gap that we were discussing yesterday, or what are your ideas to sort of overcome that?
Well, some of those traditional methods, through the chair, those traditional methods work with clients who are very job ready. They don't work so well with clients who need skills building or life stabilization supports. That's why you see us moving more in those directions rather than the traditional, here's your resume, you have all the skills, you're job ready. Since only 20% of the clients really are job ready. So we're working on this skill sector-based approaches, such as IT, construction, etc., and also with skills training. And life stabilization supports is a big problem as well. Nearly 30% of our clients say that they're in poor health. So, and those poor health they have contributory factors such as poor housing, etc.
So are you finding if there's that 30% that are in poor health, are they going to ODSP, or how much, what percentage go from OW to ODSP?
They're generally, I'm talking about people that are temporarily in poor health. You have to be much sicker to go on ODSP. We do have a portion of clients who do transition to ODSP, but I'm talking about temporary. The problem is with the temporary is that once you're out of work for 6 months or more, it's like a different labor market. Employers don't even wish to interview you. You're starting to lose your skill base, your connections, etc. So the longer you're away from the workforce, the more difficult it becomes.
Okay. And just lastly, I guess the average age here is 38, 39. That's your average age on the OW. So far distance from retirement or CPP or anything of that nature.
Yes, the age is starting to grow. The average age is up to about, what, 39 now. 39 years old.
Right.
And so you're seeing the caseload dropping, and now we're starting to deal with a more difficult base of clients.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holland. Sorry, Councillor Davis. No. You can ask it offline. Thank you, please. We're just trying to get through this right now. Can you tell me, please, Ms. Walcott, you have on page 5 here, you talk about poor health, the lack of education, skills, and so on, lack of Canadian work experience, transportation, and skill set. What is being done as it relates to addressing this situation? Because, and I ask the question from a government collaboration, coordination, because this isn't all a City of Toronto responsibility. And so what is and I realize we get OW funding and so on and so forth, but this is beyond that simply. There's a need for, whether or not it's long-term care, dealing with some of the chronic issues that people are facing in terms of health and so on. What collaboration is being done? What efforts being done by the province and the federal government to address some of these?
We are trying to address the idea of the silos and working more strongly with Employment Ontario, et cetera. But these are very separate issues. So we have to work with the Department of Immigration around language skills, the barriers that our newcomers are facing, that young people are facing. We're trying to address in the city issues around transportation, support. As you know, we're bringing forward a fair equity strategy in 2018. So we're trying to take a multi-pronged approach. One of the things we're doing is intensive case management pilots to address things like social isolation, people that are in conflict with the law, et cetera. So that is some of the reasons we're experimenting with those areas and then trying to bring it into our core delivery.
Right. Have you done the analysis and so on, if we were able to get these folks back to work, what the actual savings would be vis-a-vis the cost of actually assisting them in order to get into those conditions? Because over a long period of time, if the economics is such that there's a dependency, the costs associated with that must be quite significant.
Yes, we did some analysis on that. We actually said in our report on page 7 that if we could reduce the length of stay by just 1 month, it would represent a caseload reduction of about 2.8% and would yield monthly savings on our gross caseload of $21.7 million and $600,000 net.
I just wanted you to read that. So thank you. Councillor Davis, I have almost 2 minutes left in my time. I will afford you the opportunity to ask you a question now in my time. Thank you. You're welcome. So 2 minutes.
It was my first question when I read the report, and I have been thinking about this, and it's a question of the numbers have dropped dramatically. Are we able to know whether or not these are people who just are leaving the city?
I wouldn't be able to say if it's just that they're leaving the city, but I would say one of the reasons that the caseload is dropping are the additional supports that other orders of government have invested in child benefits. So single parents with children have a higher income level and don't qualify for OW any longer.
Okay, so we don't know if people have left the city to find someplace more affordable.
We lose touch with people, so we wouldn't know that in particular.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Davis. Councillor Davis, wish to speak? So, yeah, please go ahead.
I think what this report does, thank you very much. It's really important for us to continue to think about and to be kept informed about the trends about the people who are on social assistance. And I think what your report highlights is that the numbers are going down, and there are obviously some explanations for that, but those who are left on OW are here for longer and longer. And we need to look at special services for them. We have people who are affected by entrenched intergenerational poverty, you point out here. You point out that, and they need special services, that newcomers need language training, that single mothers need childcare, and these 4 sort of common or emerging trends of your caseload need to be addressed with particular focus. But all of them say to me, these are all services that are funded through different streams. They are all services that are funded by the 2 other levels of government, and that whether it's language training or other job training that's being delivered by many, many nonprofit organizations that we have no influence over. And the other is just the level of poverty in the City of Toronto that is contributing to people's all of those characteristics you describe of poor health and marginalization. So I was pleased to hear that there is a table that's talking about training, but we need a table that is a federal, provincial, municipal table that looks at that whole range of services that we deliver in Canada, and particularly in Ontario. And without a labor force agreement that the other provinces have, I struggle to understand how we are planning in any coherent way in the City of Toronto. I know I have asked many times, and Councillor Holland talked about the nonprofit organizations that are delivering a variety of services, and I think I've said this before. We pulled together everyone as part of our NAP. We pulled them together through the MP. We pulled them together in various ways to say, okay, what is the strategy for this priority neighborhood in terms of services? And you look around the table to the agencies, and their accountability is to the funder, and what their goals are to serve our population is, you know, we need to have so many, we need numbers, you know, so they have to count how many people that they have served and to do what. But it's not part of any kind of an integrated plan. I don't know where that plan is that has language training, other pre-employment training, other supports to employment, and all together to look at a strategy for a particular neighborhood or for a community or a city. So I don't know where we get that, and I'm looking, is it something we should ask the federal and provincial governments to come to the table once again? Is it worth a motion to once again call for a coordinated planning table to support these very integrated service delivery and program challenges so that we are working with a common set of objectives and delivery priorities? So I will leave it as a rhetorical question, and I gather this will not go to council. Oh, it does go to council. So maybe between now and then, we could think about a motion that could potentially generate or spark some intergovernmental discussions around planning, employment, pre-employment, and support services for people who are increasingly farther and farther from the workforce, as your report explains. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Davis. And yes, it is going to go to council, so we'll have some time to be able to put that together. Anyone else to speak? Okay, Councillor Kelly. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, a good report is a report that tells you something that you didn't know before. And so this is a good report. But there are parts of it that are where the argument is broadly stated. For example, a wider range of services and supports, a broader range of supports. I'd like to, in future, have more specific details. In fact, what this report does really is invite members of this committee to go out and tour and take a look firsthand at these changes that are going on. So if I can, just let me know, or my office know, how we can arrange that. That would be very important to me.
So, Councillor Kelly, if I could just add, maybe we could just have the general manager organize a tour for this committee, and we could gather, maybe grab some transportation and go to selected areas that you feel would be of benefit for us to learn a little bit more. And if Councillor Davis wishes to come, the Gold Mile is fantastic. You can come along with us. Yeah. All right. That'd be nice, actually. That's a good point. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to move the recommendations that's here. The matter will go to council. Ms. Wolcott and I have had many discussions around this issue. And of course, we try to bring in the General Manager of Economic Development as well and so on. And I remember, I guess it's the other administration where we asked for this piece to be brought into economic development so that we can actually really tie it in. And I know, Councillor Davis, initially you weren't supportive at the moment and so on, but this is the reason why we were trying to bring it in, because what was actually happening was that was over there, and we were over here. And there was a need really to kind of try to understand the issue more wholesomely. And you know, we had lost sort of that sort of emphasis of understanding. And so that was the reason why I wanted to have it here. And this is proving that it's worthwhile. And I know obviously, you know, other committees are looking at some of the other issues, and we have the issue around poverty reduction and all the other things that we're doing. And we have to take a stronger leadership role in these particular issues because, as you pointed out, many other governments have just simply either turn a blind eye to it or assume it doesn't exist, or I don't know what else the or is, but quite frankly are not doing anything. And, yeah, and yes. And so we are trying our best to ensure that we deal with this issue. It's remarkable that we're able to help many people to get off of OSW and assistance and the reliance on the state for their, you know, well-being. But we realize that not everybody is so fortunate, and those who aren't, we still have to find ways to actually help them. And we realize there are degrees of condition in which people are affected by, and so how do we actually address the dial and, you know, turning the temperature up or down, whatever the case may be, and turning it up. We're adding more resources, helping more people, turning it down. We're moving people into more opportunities where we're able to get help and help themselves and so on. I'm happy to live in a society where we are trying to help people as opposed to suggesting that they're on their own, they can fend for themselves and so on. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is helping, and we're realizing that there are more people staying on longer because of the degree of conditions that are impacting their lives, their nature. And you talk a little bit about, you know, some of the reasons why and what's going on, and we're attempting to address this. It's a bigger issue. It's not dissimilar to other issues that we have, transportation, housing, and all these other things, because it's a human issue. It's affecting the human condition, their psyche, and so on. And I just think that when we have these type of situations in which the human condition is confounded by whether or not it's health-related issues and all these, I mean, life is tough enough when you add these other layers on it and so on. And without help, it creates a huge problem as a whole for people. So the report is not perfect, and as Councillor Kelly has pointed out, we're learning something here from this report. We've had many discussions in my office, Ms. Wolcott, you and I, about how we try to deal with these and your staff. And if I haven't said it, because I don't think I have in this round, thank you and your staff team for the dedication, the emphasis, the effort that you make to ensure that there is a recognition that those who are affected and that those need our help are in fact treated with dignity, as well as efforts to ensure that we put in place a mechanism and or process to help. It may not be perfect, but it's better than what the other option is, quite frankly. So I want to thank you very much for this, and we'll ask for a vote on the item. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. All right, we're moving right along, members. We have 2 items left, and I note that the promoting international running tourism, there's a number of people who have been waiting for some time. We are on that particular item now. We did have Reed Kolstad speak to this issue already. The next speaker to this issue is Mike Anderson here. He's like, okay, so Mike Anderson is not here. Heather Gardner from Tribe Fitness. Heather? Hi, how are you? Fantastic. You know how this works. It's 5 minutes to speak, and thank you very much for your patience. Thank you. Thank you.
So my name's Heather Gardner, and I'm, as was said, kind of building off what the excitement that Reed brought. So I'm an 8-time marathoner, half Ironman, got to get that one right, half Ironman racer, and the founder of Tribe. And so Tribe is a fitness community here in Toronto. We're actually located in City Place. We were founded in 2013, and currently everything we do is available for free. So we have offered 500 free workouts so far in the city. We are the official training club for Canada Running Series race roster spring runoff, which is the first run club or race of the city, race in the city. And we, in 2016, were also the official training club for Sporting Life. And so you might know that was just a race that happened here over Mother's Day weekend. And so I first got into running about 8 years ago as an elementary health and phys ed teacher, and I took a desk job consulting for health and phys ed and realized I wasn't really moving much, was stuck behind my computer a lot of the time. Some of you might be able to relate to that. And hired a personal trainer. And so with my trainer, we decided that in 2010 I would run my first marathon, which was the New York City Marathon. I did with my sister, and we made a big weekend of it. So I can express, firsthand the excitement and the allure that comes from destination races. After New York, I went on to race in Paris, France, in Walt Disney World in Florida, and then back to New York again as well, plus the 2 marathons here in the city as well as in Hamilton. Having traveled alone in large groups, destination races offer runners the obvious subtleties of traveling alongside the thrill of sharing new experiences, accomplishments, and bonding with friends. But my love of destination races is more common than I even realized. After racing my 15th half marathon in Barbados in December, I was asked to share my story in the pages of I Run magazine, a national running publication. Here I learned that of the 50,000 runners in the New York City Marathon, more than 65% of these were international. They were staying, eating, racing, and touring in New York. They represented over 100 different countries, and they spent more than $21.5 million in one-day event. And New York isn't the only race reporting these numbers. London and Boston report similar numbers. Destination races are booming. In August, I'll return to Vancouver for the 5th year in a row with a bunch of runners from Tribe to complete the Seawees Half Marathon. In the past, we've flown from Toronto 30 runners with us to stay in hotels, to race, to shop, to dine, and to adventure in the cities of our destination race, on average spending between $2,000 and $3,000. While traveling in Paris, France, with 10 group members of our run crew in 2015, we made a week of the race. And we stayed in hotels, visited galleries upon galleries, boat cruises, shopping, dining, and adventuring in the city, spending between $3,000 to $4,000 each. For my article in iRun, I had the pleasure of chatting with Charlotte Brooks, event director at Canada Running Series, who shared that over 15% of the race entries in the adult races in 2016 at the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon Race Series were participants coming from outside of Canada. They were from the US, from Mexico, from Great Britain for top 3. Out-of-province racers also made the trip, with the highest number of registrants traveling from Quebec, Alberta, and British Columbia. These numbers are attributed to offering new and popular tour groups and agency packages. For example, Mexico offering a variety of tours, including tour groups also coming from Britain and from China. Other reasons for this were, as Reed pointed out, the IAAF Gold Label race recognition alongside Boston, New York, Chicago, and Ottawa. As a longtime runner, destination races give me, my family, and my run crew something new and exciting to look forward to beyond just the race. The opportunity to travel for a race makes me excited, counting the days when I can dip my toes in the sand, explore foreign roads, and see historical landmarks, all while doing one of my favorite things: running. For many racers across the country and across the world, our Toronto marathons can be
Just wrap up for me, please.
Opportunity for a Canadian race destination. 9
Fantastic.
seconds over.
Yeah, I
So
know.
close.
Thank you, thank you. Questions? Okay, seeing none, you were very clear. Thank you very much. All right, so we are now moving to our next speaker, Miroslav Glavich. I always do that to you just so that you can actually correct me. So it's nice to have you correct me. Miroslav, Mr. Glavich, nice to see you always. You have 5 minutes.
I agree with the motion. Councillor Fred Jack is wonderful person for making it. I have participated in the half marathons of the Scotiabank Toronto Marathon and almost every other smaller race. 12 years ago, I got hit by a drunk driver on Warden Ellesmere crossing, and doctors said I would never walk. And I'm here. I proved them wrong. And most of my senior staff at work, they come with me and we run and we spend a few $1,000s in food in the entry fees. In some of these marathons they raise funds for charity. And in the summer, there's always some kind of run. Obviously, I don't go in the marathon when the Taste of Lawrence weekend happens. That's when I go there. It's also on the health and fitness part is great. There's also some smaller runs like the Terry Fox Run, which I'm running in September. You can all come. You know, it brings a lot of people. You know, there's festivals like the Pride Parade, which I talked last month. There's also the marathons where like festivals on themselves. You know, and yeah, we should be doing more. There's a great runs and races and marathons in Toronto. And I think that Toronto Marathon is better than the Boston Marathon. You know, but I'm slightly biased. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Glavitt. Thank you. All right, the final speaker I have on my list is Doug McLaughlin. So I have you, Doug McLaughlin. Doug? Thank you very much for being here and thank you for your patience. You may sit, your clock, sir, is to the left on the wall. That thing there, yes. But I will be your manual clock. Thank you, sir. You may begin.
My name's Doug McLaughlin. My road racing career goes back to the previous century. And at that time, when I was Reed's age, I managed to run an uncoached 2-hour and 50-minute marathon, which is obviously still my personal best. I'm a born-again runner. I came back a few years back, and since I've come back, I've run Chicago, Boston, and New York. In Chicago, I was 4th in my age group in running, although that was still 4,000th overall. Of course, it's 41,000 behind me. But so I know running. I've known it for a number of years, worked with a lot of people. And one thing I can say about this is Heather was really great talking about the destination aspect of it, and I think that's great. You spend a lot of money, but to make this a destination race, what makes those races, the other, you know, Chicago, New York, Boston, so great is the people of those cities. And the only way this will become a true destination race is if you bring the people of Toronto down to it. And unfortunately, the two races we have, Good Life in the spring, which I just actually ran a few weeks ago, and Scotia in the fall, those races don't work for spectators. They are terrible. I'm glad he said he loved Toronto over Boston, but you get down to the Portlands running, and if there weren't marshals, you wouldn't see a human being for 40 minutes of your run. And if these two races, for one thing, another thing, a while back there were 2 fall races. The city didn't like that. There was a little bit of confusion, a little bit of bad blood, and one of them got bumped to the spring, the Good Life one. I don't know if that bad blood still is there. But for our destination race, one of these two has to take over. And to do that, they have to change where they're running. They have to, as far as I'm concerned, the last 13 kilometers of this marathon should run from Islington and Bloor, straight along Bloor to Avenue Road, down finishing in Queen's Park. That would put so many people there. And I mean, it's great, you know, the destination people they bring in, but just think if, oh, you know, they have well over 1 million in things like Chicago and New York, but even if we had a few 100,000, if all they do is go down into a Starbucks, a Timmy's or whatever and buy a muffin and a pop, there's a few $1 million created right there by people in the city involved in the race. And until you get them involved, it's not going to work. these runners that make it a gold standard won't necessarily come. And a gold standard is something that, that's just people go for that. It doesn't mean much if you want to know the truth. That's why there's so few of them. And if you want to know competition, you asked what our competition is, Mr. Kelly? The Good Life Marathon is sandwiched between Boston and Ottawa, two gold standard ones. The Scotiabank is sandwiched between Chicago and New York, two gold standard ones. So we have competition both in the spring and fall. So marketing will be very important. And I think it's very important for us to realize this. When you get your committee together, I don't know who you're going to get on it, put my name forward, but nonetheless, I think you need somebody from both those, that spring and fall marathon, because you need these people, I don't know, like I say, to fight it out. One of those, it's only going to be one. We can only afford one race like that. Ottawa has a fall marathon. Does anybody know about it? Why? Yeah, but we all know the spring one. So that's one of the things that has to be worked out, what your committee that you're going to put together, which in your thing says they want the report by 2018 April. I'm an impatient person, really. Can't we get the public meetings going, get this committee together and have that done by the fall of 2017? I just, sometimes it's just, you've shown a willingness here. You've shown a willingness because I'm here to make this speech. You've shown a willingness. I don't know if you guys are even aware, but Toronto had a booth at the Good Life Marathon promoting Toronto tourism. So in a sense, you've actually already made a step in the right direction. Because that booth, of course, is appealing to the destination racers that were showing up. Oh, I'm about to run out of time. So, okay. That's it.
Thank you very much for your presentation, sir. Are there any questions for Mr. McLaughlin? Okay, there are no questions of you, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Do you have questions of staff maybe on this, Councillor, or just want to speak to the issue? Okay, it's because you're referring. Okay. Okay, there's just a question of staff from Councillor Holland. Okay.
Thanks. I think it's to Mr. Williams, and I think maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So I know that Mr. McLaughlin was just mentioning the route, the race route. I've done the half, so I haven't done the full, and I've never been out to the beaches in terms of the running route. Is there a reason why we put it there? I would assume it's probably difficult to close the other areas. Mike, I think. The lights aren't working?
I'll come forward. So the routing is a complex decision that staff make, especially in Transportation Division and working with Harold. So there are a number of these races happen on Sundays, and so we try to find routes that do not interfere with churches. Is one major consideration. The waterfront route is a flat route, and while it can be into or with prevailing winds, that has some impact on how desirable the race is. The spring race is generally downhill because it starts in North York and then winds its way a little bit. Again, we have had controversies when we run the races that take any length of time to clear through. So a 10K goes through very quickly. A marathon goes through, especially if it's further down the race route, goes through very slowly. So if we run down Yonge Street and in amongst the churches on the hill, that becomes a real problem because they have a hard time getting across the route. We've had 2 marathons for a long time. These seem to be the best route mixes rather than running, on the same route. You pretty well have to do it on different routes. So it's tough.
It is. Okay, thank you so much.
And Bloor Street is very, very tough.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to hear from your, obviously working with transportation, I know that you're working hard with all the different departments on making this great event, both great events occur. So thanks so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Holland to speak. Councillor Fragedakis.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to move the recommendations in my letter and just say that, like, my own experience is that other cities, and I've gone to see some other marathons in North America, and I think that they've taken better advantage of those events to boost tourism in their cities. And I actually think that, and I think that most members of this committee, if not most members of council, would actually agree that we have a lot going on in this city and that we need to market it better. And there's definitely better ways to promote Toronto and Toronto's running events around the world. And I know that, you know, as we've heard today from Heather and others, people make travel decisions, and they make them, and there's like these niche ways that they decide where they're going to go. Sometimes it's they're foodies and they go to places where like food is a big ticket in that city. And you know, there's people who are into culture and they make those decisions based on their cultural interests. And then there's the running community and they make their decisions about where they're going to run based on cities as well. And they come, some of them with their trainers if they're elite athletes, and others with their families, and make more than one day of it, and sometimes more than 2 or 3, and sometimes 4. And they actually, you know, pick up hotel rooms and eat out and shop and so on and so forth, all of which helps our local economy. And I cited Boston as an example of a North American city that has a marathon that generates about $200 million off of a one-day event. So I'm actually, the purpose of the motion isn't to prescribe a route or change a route or anything to do with routing, but more is about how do we develop a strategy to strengthen this aspect of tourism for our city so that more people can come to our city and see how great we are and all that we have to offer. I think that we need to take a more proactive approach to promoting our city, and I hope that you can support that.
Okay, thank you. Any further speakers? You have the motion item in front of you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We have one item left. It's this item. Have you read it? All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, that's right. Sorry, Councillor. And I just took up your motion. You have an amendment. Would you please move your amendment? And would you like to speak to it then, please?
Not very long.
What it
I'll
is.
be very brief because I'm aware of time. It's that City Council requests the General Manager, Economic Development and Culture to report to Economic Development Committee following the 60 Degrees 2017 event on the outcomes and impacts of the event. Quickly, just want to say I attended this event last year and was very impressed with everyone that was there speaking, and also from the participants, and especially at a time where diversity and inclusion was something that was being threatened on the international stage. I thought this was a very important conversation that we were having in our city, and I think it would be great to for our committee and by extension council learn about the money that we're investing in this particular event as we were a presenting partner last year.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, so on the amendment, all those in favor? Okay, on the item clause as amended, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Motion to adjourn? We're adjourned. Thank you. Have a good afternoon, everybody. And again, thank you to our outstanding clerk team. Thank you. Thank you, Madam DCM. Always a pleasure having you.